1 minute to air. The live stream has started. Thirty seconds.
Good evening. Welcome to the Durham Planning Commission. The members of the Durham Planning Commission have been appointed by the City Council and the County Board of Commissioners to make recommendations to the elected officials. You should know that the elected officials have the final say on any issue before us tonight. While this meeting is being conducted in person, it is also accessible using the Zoom virtual meeting platform. In the virtual meeting platform, public participants do not have the ability to be seen or talk on video by default. To maintain meeting decorum and a discernible record of the meeting, the chat function has been disabled. For those attending in person, if you plan to speak on an agenda item tonight, please go to the table to my left and sign up to speak. When speaking, please state your name and your address clearly when you come to the podium, and please speak directly into the microphone. If you are attending the meeting virtually, you will be given the ability to speak at the appropriate time. If you have pre-registered, your name will be called for you to make your comments, just like in an in-person public hearing. You may also call in during the meeting tonight by dialing 1-301-715-8592. If you call in during the meeting, you will need to wait until the particular public hearing you are interested in starts. After all the pre-registered speakers have shared their comments, I will ask if there is anyone else wishing to speak. At that point, you will need to digitally raise your hand by pressing *9 on your phone, and when recognized, state your name and address before making your comments. Finally, all motions are stated in the affirmative, so if a motion fails or ties, the recommendation is for denial. Thank you, and may we have roll call.
Good evening, Chair Amendolia.
Here.
Vice Chair Cameron.
Here.
Commissioner Baker.
Here.
Commissioner Cutright.
Here.
Commissioner Chigaris.
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner MacGyver.
Here.
Commissioner Morgan.
Here.
Commissioner Cease.
Here.
Commissioner Trapp. Not here. Commissioner Valentine.
Here.
Commissioner Carmen Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Zuri Williams. Not present.
Let the record reflect that we have quorum. I have one announcement, just a reminder for anyone listening from a remote location and for those in attendance. We want to remind everyone that the public hearing for the new comprehensive plan will resume on March 28th, 2023, as discussed at our last meeting. With that, we're going to move to our next agenda item, which is approval of the minutes and consistency statements from February 28th, 2023. Do you have any questions, adjustments to those minutes? May I get a motion?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Cameron, seconded by Commissioner Baker. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed have the same right. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we have a text amendment on our agenda tonight that is case TC 22-0006 pet waste receptacles. I'm hoping that this is going to be an easy breezy item, and we have planning staff in attendance who are here only for that item. So with consent, I would like to move that item to be the first item on our agenda. and we can go ahead and hold the public hearing for that. Hearing no objections, we will make that adjustment to the agenda, and we will begin with that public hearing. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Trapp has arrived. Great, so with case TC 22-006, pet waste receptacles, we will begin with the staff report.
And staff would like to state for the record that all public hearing items have been noticed in accordance with state and local law, and affidavits of these notices are available in the planning department.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Dockery. I'm the planning manager with the planning department. I'm going to wait just a moment for my presentation to come up, but as a quick summary, this evening I'm presenting the information about a proposed Unified Development Ordinance text amendment, case TC 22-00006, pet waste receptacle, which was initiated by staff from several city departments working on the implementation of a total maximum daily load, or TMDL, response plan completed in 2019. As development continues in Durham, runoff from impervious surface washes pollutants such as pet waste, which causes bacterial contamination from fecal coliform bacteria, and sediment, which causes turbidity in water bodies. These pollutants end up in the drinking water supply, so TMDLs have been established to ensure safe levels. When TMDLs are exceeded, plans to reduce these are necessary. Durham County bodies of water of particular concern are Northeast Creek and Third Fork Creek. Northeast Creek is impaired due to excessive fecal coliform bacteria in the digestive systems of warm-blooded animals, including pets. Third Fork Creek is impaired by high levels of turbidity, which is caused primarily by erosion in streams and due to earth-moving activities. As you can imagine, given all of our development, there's a lot of earth-moving activities that is adding to this problem. The City of Durham completed a TMDL response plan in 2019 that focuses specifically on TMDLs in Third Fork and Northeast Creeks. However, TMDLs affect the many water bodies throughout the county. The proposed requirements for pet waste receptacles will assist with implementation of the Northeast Creek Watershed Improvement Plan, efforts to address fecal coliform bacteria while also protecting other watersheds from similar bacterial contamination. Next slide. The primary sections of the UDO that will be affected by this text amendment are Articles 7 and 9. Article 7 includes design standards for open space and residential developments, as well as standards for utility and solid waste collection facilities in all developments. These standards will be revised to require pet waste receptacles at the trailheads of all greenways and trails for new development. The solid waste collection facilities section in this article will be the most significantly altered to require pet waste receptacles to be installed in residential developments in an effort to lower the amount of fecal coliform bacteria in runoff. And there's going to be the full language of that section that I just referred to on the next slide. Article 9 includes standards for landscaping and buffering, including screening requirements for solid waste collection facilities. Pet waste receptacles will be exempt from this screening requirement. And here on this last slide, you can see the most extensive change to the UDO. Pet waste receptacles will need to be placed on homeowner association-owned land in open space areas or public space. At least 2 receptacles shall be provided for developments with 90 or fewer dwelling units, and for developments with 91 or more units, at least 3 shall be provided. The receptacles will be maintained and emptied by the HOA per open space maintenance agreements established in HOA agreements, which must be recorded for site plan approval. Thank you, and staff is available if there are any questions.
Thank you. At this time, we will open the public hearing. We will give anyone who has signed up to speak the opportunity to. Nobody has signed up to speak. If there's anyone who is attending in person or in the Zoom meeting who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand or come to the podium at this time. I see no one coming to the podium in person. One person has raised their hand on the Zoom meeting. Mimi Kessler. Mimi, you'll have 2 minutes to provide your comments.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I'm interested in, because I live in an older section of Durham, we don't have an HOA. And in fact, our neighborhood association is concerned that we don't have enough pet waste receptacles in the general area, not so much related to head trails and whatnot. And there's not a, a gate for planned development. So I noticed that it says that if there's an HOA, then the HOA is responsible for emptying it. But what if we don't have an HOA? Who's expected to empty it? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no one else wanting to speak on this item, if you'd like to speak, you need to come to the podium. Sir, I need you to come. If you're wanting to speak on this agenda item, I need you to come to the podium.
Sorry about that. No, I'll come in here for the rezoning of property on Hoover Road.
Yes, we
Now this-
we adjusted the agenda to do the text amendment first. We're doing that now. And Hoover Road, that is our last rezoning case of the night. And so we will get to it later on. I don't have a good sense of when because it depends on how quickly the other cases go.
I got you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no one else wishing to speak on this item at this time, first, I'm going to go ahead and just turn it straight to staff to respond to that question from Mimi.
Yes, this is Jessica Dockery again. So this is for new developments going forward. There is no mechanism to require those pet waste receptacles in previously approved subdivisions. And we typically require HOA agreements as part of our new developments. So we don't have a way to make other developments come up to that unless they make an amendment of some sort.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner question and comment. Does anyone have questions or comments on this case? The only comment I will make, and I made the same comment at JCCPC, is just to remind folks that while this seems menial and kind of like way too detailed, just to remind folks that pet waste impacts our water quality, and so this is why we do stuff like this. It's important for keeping our water supply safe, and please deal with your pet waste. It's not just a nuisance for people walking on a park. It actually impacts the water supply that we have. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I would take a motion at this time.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we take text amendment TC 22-006, the pet waste receptacles, to be forwarded to the City Council and County Commissioners with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Trapp. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, may we have the roll call vote?
Chair Amendolia,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cameron,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Cutright,
Yes.
Commissioner Chagaris,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner McIver,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Cease,
Yes.
Commissioner Trapp,
Yes.
Commissioner Carmen Williams.
Yes.
The motion carries 12-0.
Thank you. Great. Moving on to our zoning map changes for the night. We will begin with case Z2200028 Southpoint Mall. We will begin with the staff report.
Waiting on the presentation, and I'll start. Good evening, Commissioners, and those in attendance. I'm Andy Lester with the Planning Department. This case is Z2200028 Streets at Southpoint 2 for a proposed zoning map change. The properties are located at 6910, 6920, 6930, 6940, 6950, and 6960 Fayetteville Road, and 8060 Renaissance Parkway. This site is 7 parcels of land totaling 132.57 acres located in the suburban tier. The existing zoning is split zone commercial center with a development plan and residential rural. The applicant is proposing to rezone the entire site to accommodate up to 1.945 million square feet of non-residential floor area and up to 1.382 million square feet of residential floor space. This is a rezoning with a graphic development plan associated with the proposal. The existing future land use map designates this place as commercial. The proposed commercial center with the development plan is consistent with the commercial flume designation. Lastly, this project is located in the Falls Jordan District B watershed, protection overlay, and the major transportation corridor overlay. The existing zoning is commercial center with a development plan and residential rural. The site is surrounded by commercial general to the south, residential suburban multifamily and mixed use to the west. Across I-40 to the north are commercial centers, office and PDR zoning districts. Across Fayetteville Road to the east are mixed-use commercial general and office districts. The aerial map shows the general location of the project. It is located on the southwest quadrant of Fayetteville Road and I-40 interchange. To the south are car dealerships. To the east are apartments in an undeveloped portion of Renaissance Village. Across I-40 to the north are Homestead Market Shopping Center and the Audubon Lake Apartments. Across Fayetteville Road to the east are Renaissance Center at Southpoint Shopping Center and the Duke Health Center at Southpoint. And as stated previously, a development plan is included in the proposal. 7 site access points are proposed by private driveway connection. 4 access points are shown along Renaissance Parkway, and 3 access points are along Fayetteville Road. The current proposal designates 3 areas with different maximum height limits. The yellow section fronting Fayetteville Road will be limited to a total height of 50 feet. The orange section encompassing the main mall and fronting Renaissance Parkway would be limited to a total height of 120 feet. The blue portion adjacent to I-40 would have a maximum height of 145 feet. No streams, steep slopes, or wetlands are identified on the site. As the site is within the watershed protection overlay, the proposal provides the required maximum 70% impervious surface area. And before discussing the graphic and text commitments, staff elected daylight and apologized for an error in the staff report. The maximum office area listed in section A and B should read 300,000 square feet and not 3,000 square feet. My apologies for that. In addition to the maximum office area that's committed, a maximum commercial area of 1.445 million square feet is proposed. A maximum hotel units of 200 rooms are included. A maximum number of apartment units, which is 1,382 units. Other commitments include the parcel of land located south of Renaissance Parkway will not contain any building or parking area. All residential buildings shall be between 4 and 10 stories. Dedication of the combined 100-foot MTC buffer and the triangle bikeway easement from existing American Tobacco Trail easement to Fayetteville Road right-of-way. Traffic improvements include a bus pull-out with bus landing pad and 2 bus shelters along the west side of Fayetteville Road and Herndon, including modifications to the traffic signal and intersection laneage. A bus shelter with amenities on concrete pad and sidewalk, connections between the existing sidewalk and the proposed bus shelter for an eastbound stop on the south side of Renaissance Parkway. A bus pull-out with bus landing pad and 2 bus shelters along the north side of Renaissance Parkway to serve the westbound transit services.
Additional commitments include an additional southbound left turn lane on the Central Mall driveway with traffic signal modification, and a new loop road as a right-in, right-out access with one egress lane and one egress lane. Some design commitments include pitched gable or flat roofs with parapets with adjusted heights. A neighborhood meeting was held in accordance with UDA requirements on May 3rd, 2022. One community member was in attendance. 10 survey responses and 2 comments were provided on Social Pinpoint. Opponents and the undecided or neutral commenters had concerns of increased traffic along Fayetteville Road, impacts of schools, and lack of affordable housing. Proponents were encouraged by the greater mix of uses and increased residential density. Staff determines that the proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan and other adopted plans and policies. The proposal increases the supply of housing stock available to Durham residences and provides commercial, office, and hotel uses. Transportation has raised concerns with the construction of the newly proposed site access to Renaissance Parkway relative to the location of the proposed relocated bus stop as part of the plan. And the proposal is consistent with the commercial land use map designation. Thank you. Staff and the applicant are here to answer any questions.
Thank you. It's time we will open the public hearing. We'll begin with the applicant presentation. You'll have 10 minutes to provide your application.
Good evening, Chairman Amendolia, Vice Chair Cameron, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Patrick Biker. I live at 2614 Stewart Drive. I'm an attorney with Morningstar Law Group, and I'm here tonight representing Southpoint Mall. Joining me tonight from Southpoint are General Manager Pat Anderson, along with Senior Vice Presidents Jason Bonet and Ben Freeman. Also here are Bill Dirks, our civil engineer with McAdams. And I want to go through this PowerPoint and try to get through that in only 6 or 7 minutes, so we leave as much time for questions as possible. It's important to emphasize that right now at Southpoint Mall, there is one bus stop serving the entirety of Southpoint Mall. What we propose moving forward, and these are text commitments on our plan, is to increase that to 3 bus stops, one on each side of Renaissance Parkway and one on Fayetteville Street at the north end of Southpoint in order to serve Go Triangle riders. It's very important to note that Southpoint is also working to facilitate increase in park and ride demand. Right now, currently, about 50 to 60 people utilize park and ride spaces at Southpoint. Our plan calls for 147 parking spaces to be provided, which is more than double the current demand. In addition to that, there will be pedestrian connectivity to connect these bus stops to the mall and to the new development that will be taking place. And so it's important to recognize that Southpoint is, in fact, our region's #1 generator of the transit sales tax that we approved as a community about 10 years ago. To dive into this in a little more detail, we're looking to expand public transportation options here. Again, increase to 3 bus stops where only one exists today. And it's important to note that there will be 2 bus pull-offs and 2 shelters for Go Triangle and Fayetteville Road. That will allow the Go Triangle Route 800 to dive off of I-40, pick up people here at Southpoint, and then continue on I-40 to its main destination, which is UNC Medical Center. And then there'll be 3 bus pull-offs and 2 shelters for Go Durham along Renaissance Parkway. And so that new bus configuration, bus stop and bus shelter configuration will allow for greater operating efficiency, decreased commute times, decreased vehicle reliance, emissions, and traffic. And again, I want to emphasize the closer proximity to I-40 is something we've worked on with Go Triangle over the past couple of years. Of course, the overall thrust of this zoning map amendment is to transform 20-year-old surface parking lots into multifamily housing, hotels, retail, restaurants, and employment spaces. Of course, this will require enormous amounts of structured parking. On account of this investment in structured parking, and because Southpoint is not in a qualified census tract, that boosts the effectiveness of a low-income housing tax credit, our team is pursuing an affordable housing proffer to build affordable housing where it's far more efficient and faster to do it than at Southpoint Mall. Our team is waiting for the city and county deliberations about allocating American Rescue Plan funds, ARPA funds, to more or less shovel-ready affordable housing projects in Durham. When that process is done, we hope Southpoint will be able to pursue a partnership with a pre-approved affordable housing project to bring more affordable housing to those who need it right now, not in 2025 or 2026. To a certain extent, we are following the example that this Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval for relating to a development agreement along Durham-Chapel Hill Boulevard that we discussed at your January 10 meeting. It's very important to dive into Southpoint's history, I think, in regards to this agenda item. Southpoint is 21 years old, and when it opened in 2002, it really did spur tremendous development for Southern Durham and actually for our downtown and other important areas that have been revitalized since then. Of course, today it is a 1.3 million square foot regional, super regional shopping center, and it attracts 13 million visitors per year. It is the largest sales and property tax generator in Durham, and it has a 97% occupancy rate, 100% with the addition of pop-up stores. These 140 retail shops are always fully leased. However, the worst thing you can do in any profession is rest on your laurels. And so this development, we want to recognize Southpoint is facing increased competitive pressure from Raleigh and Cary developments. And we need to move forward in order to maintain Southpoint's competitive edge. And so to that end, this is about Southpoint's future and creating success for another 20 years. It is critical to expand the uses and the programming for Southpoint so that we have the future viability and continued growth for another 20 years. The approvals and entitlements that are before the Planning Commission tonight will allow Southpoint to remain competitive in the Triangle market. And again, this is vital for us to maintain the sales tax and property tax revenues that we enjoy in Durham County. And so to dive in a little bit on the proposed rezoning, we are looking to improve the center by evolving it from a regional shopping center to a vibrant mixed-use community hub. It will be anchored by the successful retail and looking at redevelopment opportunities where there are surface parking lots. So in addition to the 1.3 million of retail square footage that's there today, we're looking at 100,000 more square feet of retail, and we certainly want to work on attracting another 4 or 5 top quality restaurants. Again, we'll be adding 2 new bus stops with additional sidewalk connectivity, and we're looking to add 1,382 residential units, up to 300,000 square feet of office, and up to 200 hotel rooms. It's important to recognize that we, as a team, have focused very much on pedestrian, bicycle, and transit connectivity. And so part of this development plan calls for multiple connections to the American Tobacco Trail. And there will be the dedication of Southpoint's property along Interstate 40 to allow the city and other regional partners to go forward with the new proposed Triangle Bikeway when that has funding and is ready to move forward. Again, we want to emphasize increased pedestrian and vehicular safety. Of course, traffic is an important consideration, and so I want to stress for the Planning Commission that our TIA was reviewed by the city and NCDOT. It's somewhat surprising that current traffic counts around Southpoint Mall are still slightly below pre-pandemic levels. It's also important to know that Renaissance Parkway currently carries about 15,000 cars per day, which means that the road is operating at approximately 45% of its capacity, slightly under half. In addition to that, it's our understanding that the city has funded the traffic signal at Leonardo and Renaissance, so that will improve safety for the western end of Renaissance Parkway as well. And of course, we want to emphasize pedestrian safety so that there'll be new sidewalks within the site to create improved walkability, especially looking at Gulf Triangle park and ride spaces. And then there'll be safer connections to and from the mall with the addition of pedestrian signals and 2 high visibility crosswalks. And lastly, I want to emphasize there'll be sidewalk extensions along Fayetteville Road. In closing, I'd like to address the economic impact. I want to credit Hunden Strategic Partners, which was our third-party consultant evaluating this. It's very important to recognize that Southpoint generates $27 million in sales taxes for Durham. That includes, or in addition to that, there's $1.9 million for transit. As you know, we've had a referendum to add a half-cent sales tax for transit and Southpoint generates $1.9 million. And there's also $2.9 million in property taxes. I want to emphasize that Southpoint is by far the largest generator of sales taxes and property taxes for all of us in Durham County. And it's very important for homeowners in Durham, especially those who are living on a fixed income. Accordingly, we respectfully ask for your approval tonight. Our team will be happy to answer any questions, and we thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. With that, we will open it up to public comment. Okay, we have 3 people who have signed up to speak in person. If there are folks, sorry, 2 other folks that have signed up to speak in person, and if other people want to speak in the Zoom meeting, please start raising your hand at this time. We have Mad Bankson and Wendell Bullard. If y'all would come to the podium, state your name and address, and then you'll have 2 minutes to provide comments.
Hi, I'm Mad Bankson. I live at 910 Arnett Avenue. Hi again, I'm Mad Bankson. I'm here to speak against expanding the presence of Brookfield Asset Management in our Durham community. A little about me, I hold a master's in city and regional planning from UNC. I'm also a resident of Durham, where I've worked with tenants and researched housing-related issues for several years. I'm currently with the nonprofit organization Private Equity Stakeholder Project, where I conduct research and campaign to mitigate the harmful effects of private equity in the housing system. I'm here with some vital information about Brookfield Asset Management, the owner of this site. Brookfield itself is a major owner in multifamily housing. However, I want to talk today about Ginkgo Residential Trust, which Brookfield acquired in 2013. Ginkgo Residential is a real estate investment company with a geographic focus in North Carolina. They have 3 multifamily complexes in Durham County. According to data from the sheriff, analyzed by DataWorks North Carolina, Ginkgo filed 393 evictions at these 3 complexes, that's summary ejectments and writs of possession, between February 2021 and February 2023. This makes Ginkgo, and by extension Brookfield, Durham County's 4th highest evictor during this time period. It should be noted that the federal eviction moratorium was in place through late August 2021, during which Ginkgo continued to evict tenants. It's hard to overstate how devastating this tenant mistreatment is for our community, as I'm sure many of you know. While Ginkgo is one subsidiary of Brookfield, the mega private equity firm does have sway over its operations. As such, I feel extremely concerned about the possibility of allowing this company to expand its operations in Durham. I understand that our city is in need of more housing, but I was also really concerned to see a lot of vagueness around what we're talking about with affordability here. I actually would appreciate clarification around that. Durham doesn't need any more unaffordable housing. This site needs affordable housing. Poor people in Durham are moving further and further outside of the city to places like Southpoint. We have plenty of unaffordable housing here. Please correct me if there's something I need to know that I'm missing. I ask that the commission recommend that this rezoning not be considered until affordability conditions are added and that a large percentage of the proposed units are affordable to very low income people, making 30 to 50% of the area median income. I'm also calling on Brookfield to publicly agree to stop its abusive behavior towards low income renters in our community in exchange for any rezoning concessions. Please hold our most vulnerable community members in your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Amendolia, Vice Chair Cameron, and to the Planning Commission members. My name is Wendell Bullard. I reside at 1532 Pomona Drive here in Durham. Durham native, Durham lifetime resident, except for time in the U.S. Air Force. I've been a licensed real estate broker since 1994, and I currently own Bullard Properties LLC that specializes in commercial, residential, and land development. With almost 30 years in real estate, and as a Durham resident, I get to see Durham's growth. You have already heard some data on the revenues generated by Southpoint and the mall, but the economic impact of Southpoint has had a impact on Durham extends far beyond that. The mall is a destination center. and it spurred a lot of economic opportunity and was built. Myself and my business partner in 2004 formed South Realty Executives Triangle Southpoint. So you can see the last name Southpoint was a play off of this location, as we did residential and commercial real estate. So we knew keenly what this would have with respect to the community. As a realtor, I know many realtors who work with families acquiring homes and property in Southwest Durham because of this location and its footprint. My own daughter worked at AMC Theater when it opened when she was in high school in 2002. I was happy for that. It's a destination for many of us on a regular basis, including myself weekly, not only for shopping, but the restaurants and all the amenities it has to offer. Now, as a real estate professional, I am proud to stand in support of this rezoning. As the popularity of indoor malls fades, the ownership here is making smart moves to plan for the future with what will become of the indoor mall. A vibrant mixed-use, retail, office, hotels, residential, and a vertically integrated walkable format. They have reimagined the existing use of expanses of parking as a tightly woven mixed-use development, something Durham deserves. I hope you support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I see no one else wishing to speak in person at this time, so we're going to go to our Zoom attendees. First, we have Tricia Smar. Tricia, you'll have 2 minutes to provide your comments.
Thank you. Yes, good evening. This is Tricia Smar. I'm at 513 Valley Mead Drive in Durham. Basically, that's between Southpoint Mall and Lions Farm Elementary. Given the fact that this development will directly impact not only road traffic, but also foot and bike traffic in the area, could the commission ask or require that the developer commit to improving bike and pedestrian infrastructure in the area beyond the direct footprint of their property? For instance, there's a gap in the sidewalks between the American Tobacco Trail and Lions Farm Elementary, which is the school to which the children in these new apartments will be districted. I've actually been working with several neighborhoods, Durham Transportation and NCDOT to help fill a gap and have a project estimate of about $620,000 that would help complete the ATT to Lions Farm connectivity with sidewalks. Now, if that price tag is too steep for the developers, there are grants that would cover 80%, but they still require a 20% match, which would be about $124,000. Plus, such a connection would directly benefit the children and families of the development by providing accessible bike and pedestrian access from their homes to their elementary school, and also aligns with Durham's Vision Zero and Safe Routes to Schools principles to improve safe bike pedestrian access across Durham, especially to the schools. The burden of ensuring safety for residents should not fall solely on the city, county, or us as residents. The developers that are bringing more people to the area should bear a greater responsibility for connecting residents new and old across the communities that they're impacting. So my question is, could we require the developers to make a text commitment of $124,000 to this project as part of this rezoning process as a means of alleviating some of the added congestion their project will cause this area?
Thank you. Next, we have Mimi Kessler. Mimi, you'll have 2 minutes to provide your comments.
Hi, I'm Mimi Kessler. I live at 1418 Woodland Drive in Durham, and I'm having a little trouble picturing this, and I'm wondering if they could go back to one of the maps, maybe the one with the yellow and the tan and the blue, and explain again, like where do they imagine the apartment building to be? Where do they imagine the hotel to be? And I'm interested in the park and ride thing. I didn't realize that there was any of that going on, so I'm really happy to hear that. And I'm wondering whether they could consider having a multi-level parking facility to increase the capacity for park and rides. In general, I think this sounds like a really good plan. And I really wish that Mr. Biker would have the people who own Northgate look at this as an inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mimi. I'm not seeing anyone else wanting to speak on this case at this time. Mr. Biker, you had a minute and 39 seconds left of your time. If you would like to say anything else.
Just that our team's happy to answer any questions, so we appreciate your time tonight. And again, it's very important to move forward with Southpoint. Well, again, while it's in a position of strength, it would be a different, Ms. Kessler for the Northgate. You know, we didn't want to come to the Planning Commission when Southpoint was 30% vacant. We wanted to come here. Well, we can put forward a plan that we know is viable and can move forward, and will again make an investment in transit and pedestrian infrastructure that will benefit our region and especially Durham. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you take a seat, and before we get into questions, the first thing I wanted to go ahead and clarify, you mentioned a proffer related to affordable housing?
Yeah, we don't have a partner identified yet. We're waiting for the city and the county to allocate ARPA funds, American Recovery Plan. That process is ongoing, should be done in the next several weeks. Once that process has played itself out, we'll be able to identify where there's a shovel-ready project that we can step in and provide the necessary gap financing.
So are you making a proffer to?
Not at this time, sir. Just telling you what our intent is. We'll make
So
that proffer
sorted out
council
between now and city council. Your intent is that once that's sorted out between now and city council to add that as a proffer?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Questions and comments from commissioners? Commissioner Morgan.
Yeah, I had a question for the applicant as well. One of the things I've noticed with some of these developments is to try to create more of a community, like a grocery store or drugstore, things like that. I see that in sort of North Hills and some of the other areas when I lived in Charlotte. And it seems like, is the applicant interested in making a proffer or commitment to try to attracting sort of a grocery store or a place where, you know, I'm thinking with all these units you're adding, it would be great to have a place where people could just walk to the store versus get in their car, and it would cut down on a lot of vehicle traffic.
At this time, at a high level, we're not able to recruit a full-service grocery store. It would simply require too much surface parking. And the vision of this project is to go with structured parking. And I would emphasize that the target down the road does have a grocery selection. Having said that, obviously some of the retail would be able to provide those amenities for new residents in the area.
Yeah, I would just think that would be a good place, especially with some of the residents that might be moving in there. That might be great to kind of cut down on vehicle traffic.
Right.
Okay. I had another question, but I forgot it, so I'll pass.
That happens to me too.
It's when you get old.
Vice Chair Cameron.
Thank you. Just a quick question. You have 300,000 square feet of office? What kind of office? Who's going to go there
That is yeah.
in today's climate?
Vice Chair Cameron, that's a very interesting discussion point. We have had interest from healthcare providers, so it could be healthcare-related office, but that's to be determined. I think the traditional office market is very weak and not coming back anytime soon. To be honest with you, the first neighborhood meeting we had was before the pandemic. And so that's when we were focusing on what the types of uses would be. And that's actually where that 300,000 square foot number came from, was discussions we had, which must have been, when was that? 2019. So that's a number that was incorporated into the rezoning request. I think it's much more likely that we'll move forward with hotel uses at Southpoint than traditional office uses. But again, we have had interest expressed from healthcare office users.
The other thing I just want to say is that I'm in support of this development. This is a trend where we're increasing density, including housing and hotels and other types of uses around retail. The target is probably a 10, 15-minute walk up the road with the sidewalks for grocery shopping. And this type of development also supports the 15-minute communities, neighborhoods that we're talking about in the city of Durham. So I think it's a good, exciting idea to change Southpoint around.
Thank you. Commissioner Baker.
think the proposition of taking an aging mall and redeveloping it into a mixed-use activity center is really good and really important. It's something that has been a long time coming. It's something that a lot of communities are doing and something that Durham needs to do. We also talk a lot about housing, but we often talk about it in terms of sort of supply and treating it sort of like boxes of cereal rather than something that's integrated in the fabric of the community, and thinking about housing in the context of neighborhoods. And I know just talking with people anecdotally, and I think it plays out in the data, is that a lot of people are looking for places where they can live, where they can get to places and walk to places. And I think that that's really important, that we're creating a higher supply of those kinds of neighborhoods. So you walked through the affordability very quickly, so I want to come back to that. How many units? So there's going to be 1,000 up to 1,382 apartments permitted on the site through this rezoning. I'm sorry, what percentage of those would be affordable?
There won't be any affordable on-site, Commissioner.
No affordable on-site?
It would be looking to a affordable housing project that's in a qualified census tract. Therefore, it would be much lower gap financing per unit, and therefore it'd be a much more greater bang for the buck in order to develop affordable housing in those venues.
Okay, none, absolutely none on the site.
That's correct.
So none, not in my backyard. And what kinds of green building elements are you planning for the site?
I don't believe we have any identified at this point in time.
Okay.
It's a phased development. We'll have to see what the demand dictates in terms of whether a hotel would be the first phase or residential or what have you.
Okay. A couple questions for staff. So there's a very large site. I'm curious, and if you're not able to answer the question, don't worry about it. I can turn the question to the applicant, but I'd like to hear from you. Are we looking at, this is a very large site, are we looking at some sort of internal multimodal street network? Do we know? Is there going to be like dedication of streets? Are we creating blocks?
Earlene Thomas, Transportation. So no, their access points are private driveways.
It'll all be private? Okay. And is this not subject to the city's connectivity index, street connectivity index? No.
Earlene Thomas, Transportation again. So no, because there are no streets, so it wouldn't be subject to that section of the ordinance.
Okay. All right. So no internal public street network. No internal network of alleys. I'll ask the applicant, is there any intention of dedicating public spaces, creating plazas, parks, rooftop parks, those kinds of places?
There'll definitely be plazas and parks, but they'll be privately maintained. But obviously, anybody in the public's welcome to enjoy the space. It's similar to if you look at the slide right there, it's right outside of the theater, and it's a great venue for people to take their children to play. And anybody's welcome to do it.
Okay. Okay. I might have some comments later, but I'm going to turn things back and let other commissioners ask questions.
Commissioner Cease.
One quick question for staff, and then I'm sorry, for the applicant, and then a couple of questions for staff. I believe I heard one of the public comments referencing vertical integration. I didn't hear that in your presentation. I don't see anything. Is there any commitment to vertical integration of uses?
Do you want to commit? Should we? I mean, that's certainly our vision to have a portion of the site be retail ground floor and residential above. So we could, we'd have to wordsmith that, Commissioner Cease, but there's certainly a portion of the development that would be ground floor retail with a few floors of residential above it.
Well, for all,
am I correct about that? Yeah, so, I mean,
Thanks for all the emphasis on pedestrian connectivity and pedestrian access and the experience of places, public places, whether they're public or private, which is a valid question that Commissioner Baker raised. But the vertical integration plays a role in that too. But to the point of wordsmithing, maybe we'll come back to that. So questions for staff, transportation questions, if you could. The application, and I appreciate the initial presentation that referenced the discrepancy in the commercial square footage, but the application is for 300,000 square feet of office, right?
Yes.
Correct. But the TIA references 100,000?
So the TIA does have a different mix of use in square footage. So what happens is they get approved for a certain number of trips that can be added to the roadway network, and that's their threshold that they can't exceed. So they could mix and match the square footage intensity of those uses, but they wouldn't be able to exceed the trip budget that's been established in the TIA.
So at what point in time would that trip budget be reevaluated if, and by what mechanism would it be reevaluated? And I'm asking this more in a general sense because so much weight is put on the prevailing methodologies of the DOT as we consider these things, and those are all subject to change, as we know, and rightfully so. But I'm just wondering what mechanism would occur for that to change? How could they build 200,000 square feet of office if that was ever?
So one important thing to note is the tax commitment is for a maximum of that 300. So they could build less than that.
Sure.
But the ordinance states that they can't exceed the TIA trip budget by more than 3% without requiring a rezoning.
Trip budget by what percentage?
They cannot go over 3% of that established trip budget.
Similar question. There's a reference to the internal trip capture rate and also transit. I'm wondering what those percentages were, what modal split was there.
I don't have that right in front of me. It's in the full TIA, and I don't know if the applicant would have that with them, but there are allowable reductions per the Institute of Transportation Engineers that can be taken for different modes, transit being one of those. And I don't recall if for conservative analysis, if they did a transit reduction or not, I'd have to refer back. But internal capture between uses takes trips off of the roadway and keeps them on the site.
Well, maybe so you have access to the full report, just not readily in front of you, right? I think those are important numbers. I'd like to, at some point, come back to that. Thank you.
Certainly.
Thanks.
Commissioner Valentine.
Yes, I have a question for the applicant. So you had mentioned that before the pandemic that there would seem to be a lot of neighborhood involvement, and that was dating back to 2019.
we had neighborhood meetings.
Meetings, okay.
We had neighborhood meetings pre-pandemic, that is correct.
Okay, but the neighborhood meeting that's mentioned here on May 3rd, 2022 notes that there was only one member of the community.
That's correct.
So generally, the involvement in neighborhoods or communities increases over time. Was there a notice requirement that was?
No, as a matter of fact, we reached out to all the folks that we could think of, Commissioner Valentine. Most of the people who showed up seemed very supportive of the proposal that we put forward.
So you're speaking of the one person who showed up?
Oh, no, I'm talking about the meetings that we've had since 2019.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, so I have additional questions. So going back to the affordable housing, I believe that you made the presentation before this body, and at that time, we were concerned about projects coming to us that were affordable housing piece being connected to other projects. And our concern at that time was that would become the trend. And so here you are offering that again this evening. And so are we to look for more projects to be connected to other projects in a way of not making good faith effort at providing for the affordable housing in a specific project? Is that what's happening?
What is the double whammy on providing affordable housing, Commissioner Valentine, is a structured parking environment that is not within a qualified census tract. The North Carolina Housing Finance Agency requires 1.75 parking spaces per unit whenever a tax credit is issued by the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. So in a structured parking environment, if you figure $25,000 a space, ballpark, $40,000 has to be provided in parking, structured parking, and that's significant. If you're not in a qualified census tract, the financing gap per unit under current conditions with interest rates and building costs is approximately $65,000 a unit, whereas if you're in a qualified census tract, it's around $40,000 a unit. And so you put all those factors together, and it is remarkably inefficient to try to build affordable housing that's not in a qualified census tract and has to rely on structured parking. And so it really is a question of efficiency and speed to market, as opposed to what would cost a great deal and be slow to market. And so that's the analysis that our team undertook, and we certainly evaluated if it would be financially feasible, possible to undertake affordable housing on site. And when we looked at it, it certainly was not. And it just makes more sense when we've got projects that are shovel-ready today and be able to get one of those over the finish line so they can actually break ground and provide housing in the next several months rather than wait a few years.
So I just have one follow-up, but probably more of a statement. I'm concerned about projects that come to us where the developer is not going to provide a good faith effort. Not to say that you did not regarding this project, but developers not making a good faith effort at an attempt at this affordable housing as a integral component of their projects. I'm very concerned about that.
I appreciate that.
Commissioner Cutright.
To beat a dead horse, I think one thing we just want to clarify here is what you looked at is a LIHTC project, right?
Primarily.
So I think that's an important clarification here, in that I understand all the financial aspects and components in terms of gap financing and making that work from a LIHTC deal. Have you looked at providing just 80% to 100% AMI deals that don't necessarily have to be LIHTC deals, where we can get firefighters and teachers to be able to utilize all the amenities that will be on this site? I ask that understanding that that's an important distinction here. And so one is potentially a real constraint. The other is one that can be navigated through your own financial models and doesn't have the same constraints from a financing, qualified census tract, any of those standpoints. So I'd just like to hear some thoughts on that.
We did evaluate 80% or so AMI units, and it was not financially possible given the financial underwriting standards of our financing partner. So we certainly evaluated that very carefully and looked at what percentages, what number could fit, and it was not feasible given the parking requirements just in general, regardless of what the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency requires. Obviously, you have to provide some parking, and it's just simply not something that our financial partner was able to approve.
Thanks.
Commissioner Carmen Williams.
Thank you, Chair Amendolia. I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding things correctly. So we have a parking requirement that we can't meet, but we're using parking spaces in order to build, but we're also increasing transportation via city transportation to this space, which would eliminate the need for parking spaces because we're hoping people are going to take the bus, correct?
I think it's a mix of all those factors, Commissioner Williams. There's no doubt that we want to encourage people to use transit and providing additional stops to make it as convenient as possible. But obviously the reality is people will be using vehicles for the foreseeable future.
Okay, and there's no option for the possibility of charging stations to increase the ability for people who will be living in this area to reduce their impact on the environment as well. And since the office spaces probably isn't a good idea, since the majority of the commercial spaces in the Triangle area are empty, Durham could definitely use another event center, but I'm just over here.
That's a great point. We'll certainly evaluate incorporating charging stations. We think that's a great idea.
Thank you.
Commissioner Davis.
So is this a build it and they'll come type of deal for the hotels, or, because, I mean, there's already 2 there at Southpoint. So what, I mean, are those hotels just packed, or are we hoping to?
I've had certainly several calls, Commissioner Davis, from hotel operators interested in locating here. So that I think, following up on Vice Chair Cameron's point about office space, I would say hotel is much more robust than traditional office. Having said that, my educated guess is that it will be a subsequent phase, not the initial phase of this development, but I can assure you we've had interest from hotel operators that this would be a strong site for hospitality.
Okay. Hilton and Marriott both operate the 2 that are there at Southpoint?
Yeah, right.
I mean, would it be?
I don't know, sir. I mean, what operator it would be, there's so many different operators. I honestly don't even remember exactly who it was. I just know I've had phone calls from very well qualified hotel operators to locate here, and that would be, I think, a benefit for the area.
Commissioner Morgan.
I remember my question. I was going to lose it if I didn't keep it. I should have written it down. No, the residential housing, is it all going to be leased out versus owner occupied?
That's correct. Yes, we do not envision having any condominiums.
No permanent resident or?
No, it would not be condominiumized.
Okay.
That's our perspective on it at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Arlene.
Earlene Thomas, Transportation. So I have the information that Commissioner Cease requested. For internal capture, there was about 4% in the AM and 14% reduction in the PM. The pass-by trips were capped at 10% in the PM, and transit reductions were 7% in the AM and PM.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Shigaris.
Yes, I have a question for the applicant. So the proposed buildings are going to be built where there's current parking, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's going to reduce the overall footprint of the parking.
Right, there'll be structured parking, and then most of the development will be on top of the structured parking.
Structured parking as in a parking deck?
Correct.
Okay, so that's where the extra people are going to park. So I know the lot's empty a lot except for like at Christmas time. And then there's no room to park anywhere.
And that's a good thing.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Cease.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I appreciate the interest that the owners are pursuing here in attempting to repurpose and looking for ways to repurpose the surface parking lots. And I very much appreciate the points that you raised, Patrick, about the emphasis on pedestrian connectivity, on the character of the public spaces, and as well recognizing the uncertainties that need to be accommodated in whatever the applicant is asking for and the timelines associated with build out of this number of units and this amount of square footage. One thing that we haven't explicitly addressed, or maybe it did come up just in passing, is the relationship to the American Tobacco Trail. So for all the discussion of the value, which in economic terms of Southpoint and what it pumps into our economy, both directly and indirectly, it's all very relevant. But I think you could arguably make the case as well that the biggest public amenity that we have in the community is American Tobacco Trail. You know, and it really impacts a lot of different constituencies, different citizens in different ways, and it connects a lot of people. I want to make a linkage here between the emphasis that you've placed on transit viability or access and improvements, the 7% modal capture, which is not insignificant. That's a pretty big number compared to a lot of projects, but that, and the frontage along the American Tobacco Trail. For this to all function well, the design of these spaces is essential. And what's presented to us in this application package gives zero information on design other than building height differential. And maybe zero is too harsh. There's some indications of pedestrian connections, but those are kind of insignificant in the grand scheme of 1,300 units, 300,000 square feet of commercial, or I'm sorry, office, and another 100,000 square feet of commercial. So where I'm going with this is I think it's essential to have more information and more clarity around what the relationship is between the proposed development and those points of connection. And especially along the quarter mile of frontage that you have on the American Tobacco Trail. Because people go from here to there, running and on bike today. And to really maximize those percentages in internal trip capture, I think there has to be more information conveyed on the plan, whether it's commitments about avoiding exposed structured parking within a certain distance of the tobacco trail, or presenting, you know, the equivalent of street facades. I think that's really essential, and that can be wordsmithed, to your reference to that phrase earlier. I 100% support the idea of the numbers that are represented in this plan. I'm 100% opposed to the idea of approving an entitlement without more information about some of those concerns that I referenced. And I'd like a little bit of clarity to the point, and I just want to reinforce the point. I agree with Commissioner Cutright saying that, you know, that I don't think the discussion of affordable housing is treated sufficiently by hanging it on the, you know, the efficiency question or the census tract designation, because yes, you may have a less efficient yield of the number of units of affordable housing, but the people who work in these retail stores get there by bus today, a lot of them. And the ethos that you'll hear expressed over and over politically in this community is that, you know, people should have more equity and access, and I think that equity and access includes seeking ways, finding ways to include some affordable housing. I mean, we've had very, very small projects come before this commission recently south of this location that include an offer of affordable housing on site. So, you know, for the scale that's being proposed here, I would encourage the applicant to consider ways to find around those issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Commissioner Baker.
I just want to pull out, you know, we've been working for 4 years on a comprehensive plan. I just want to pull out some of the policies that are in that comprehensive plan, some of the draft policies. We've got policy 8, which is collaborate with residents on proposed mixed use or transit-oriented communities, focused on those most in need of affordable housing and transportation. Policy 33, encourage the retrofit of aging and vacant shopping centers and excess parking areas for the development of pedestrian-oriented places that include affordable housing and which provide residents nearby access to necessary goods and services. Policy 39, affordable housing should be included in new development proposals. Policy 43, equitably distribute housing throughout Durham that is accessible to those with low incomes. Housing actions, number 2, encourage the use of proffers or statutory development agreements to commit to the development of affordable housing and acceptance of housing vouchers in new development. And I'm simply not willing to abandon all of this work that we've done in putting together the comprehensive plan. You know, and I want to pull out 2 comments that were made by, or comments that were made by 2 different commissioners up here, Commissioner Cutright and Commissioner Cease, who I think both so many of us up here, I think, are, if not all of us, are in favor of and applaud the work that's being done, the vision for redeveloping an aging mall site into something that is an activity center, that is transit-oriented, that has better accessibility, that is walkable, that provides more transportation choices, even though we are dealing with the reality that probably people are going to be using cars for the foreseeable future. But I think that a big question here is this going to be a giant exclusionary private development, or will this weave into the fabric of the city? And Durham doesn't have a ton of good standards within this zoning district. We can't just rely on the standards that we have. We have to rely on voluntary commitments by the developer. And we're seeing fewer commitments, sort of coming to the comments of Commissioner Cease. There's just so little information here on this massive and transformative project or proposed project. You know, Southpoint surroundings they're auto-oriented. Strategically retrofitting these centers does represent a major opportunity, has to be done right. We have to meaningfully expand transportation choices to Durham residents. Again, coming back to Commissioner Cease's comments, we think about walkability, we think about the 3 Ds, density, diversity, and design. We're increasing density, or you're proposing to increase density. That's a good thing. Diversity of uses, proposing to increase the diversity of uses with the exception of affordable housing. The design is a big question, and the devil is in the details on the design, and we just don't have that information. And it continues to be a big question mark. And I think that we need to know that, to know whether it's consistent with the vision and the values that are being proposed in the comprehensive plan, and that are frankly included in the old comprehensive plan. And then the other commissioner who spoke up on the issue of affordability, Commissioner Cutright, speaking to affordability in terms of really workforce housing. You know, we're calling it affordable housing, but it's really about workforce housing. We're not talking about 30% AMI. We're not talking about 50% AMI. We're not talking about 50, 60, 70% of the units. There's literally a proposal here for 0% workforce housing. And I can't see how we can find that consistent with the values and the vision that the community of Durham has set forward. So to me, the question is, are we going to urbanize for people and places, or are we going to vertically suburbanize for cars and traffic? We're talking about a transformative project for South Durham. This won't be a new Durham downtown, but this could be a South Durham downtown. And we only get one shot. There's only one shot. And so it's important to get it right. So to me, this is a good direction, and it's very, very close. And there are a lot of reasons to be really optimistic about the proposal and the potential and the opportunity. But for me, I simply can't support what I have in front of me. And so to me, the question is, do we take a vote on it? Does the applicant take it back and do a little work and bring it back to us before we send it forward to City Council? And I think that's a question that I have for the commission.
Other questions and comments? Commissioner Cease?
I'll just quickly say that I do think wordsmithing could address a number of the concerns that you've heard expressed here. And I mean, from my perspective at least, it wouldn't give those of us who are designers necessarily all the certainty we would like to, but I think what's presented right now is something that is, you know, carte blanche within the perimeter. And there would be, I think, some fairly easy ways to address some of these concerns with a bit more clarity in a short period of time, such that, you know, that the support could be more widespread. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, Commissioner Cease, may I? Did you have any suggestions on the pedestrian circulation plan that was included? If you had anything specific, we obviously want to see that would be additive to that sheet in the plan, which highlights the additional connection to the American Tobacco Trail and the internal pedestrian circulation.
So I'll tell you where my big concerns are. My big concerns, number one, say the 200 feet along the frontage of an American Tobacco Trail. What's before us, that could all be parking, that could all be parking garages. You could turn your back to that. And in fact, you could turn your back to that. You could turn your back to Fayetteville. You could turn your back to Renaissance Parkway, and that 7% would never materialize on the transit capture. Or we could actually engage Fayetteville with some type of urban space rather than just a sidewalk. You can engage American Tobacco Trail with some type of space that is more accommodating and welcoming for runners, joggers, cyclists, people pushing strollers, and isn't just a place that only those who have no choice end up walking because they don't have a car or the car broke down that day. And so those are things, I think you could treat the zone along American Tobacco Trail. The only reference, I thought it was kind of comical, the reference to the commitment for 1,000 feet of sidewalk frontage along Fayetteville, I believe, with a cost threshold. So we'll build that, but not if it's more than $65 a square foot. That isn't a strong indication of really being intentional about supporting transit viability and pedestrian usage. So that's, rather than, to your question, rather than addressing the map, I'd really rethink how can you actually make the external connections stronger and make the text commitments more supportive of the things that you referenced in your presentation.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think to me, the more pressing question at this point is if there is a willingness by the applicant to have a continuance to work on some of these details. Cards on the table for me, I would love to send this forward with a favorable recommendation because I appreciate the concept and it is a transformative project. However, as it stands, and as I'm hearing fellow commissioners, there's some unease there with the existing plans. So I think that's kind of my first priority, is understanding your thoughts on, and look, I know 2 months is too much time. I pride myself on trying to get things moved through the Planning Commission quickly, but this is important and is a big project, so I want to at least consider it.
Chairman, if may I ask Assistant Director Grace Smith or Mr. Cahill a question. If we defer for we defer to your March meeting, okay?
It says March.
Sorry, April. Commissioner Morgan, you're rubbing off on me. Forgot what month it was. It is. Would we be able to get to the City Council in June?
I'm going to be honest, Grace Smith with the Planning Department. May and June, we don't have as much flexibility at City Council because of the budget hearings.
Yeah.
And we're already have cases in the hopper for those meetings. So I can't say that we could. I mean, I don't want to say that with any certainty. I wish I could answer that question with certainty, but I really can't. Yeah. But you.
Is that your?
Yeah, I'll just add, there's been, some discussion with some things that have happened and things being rearranged. Even if this was passed tonight, I can't guarantee you'd be at council before August anyway.
Oh, really? Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, Mr. Chairman, what we were trying to avoid was the delay in city council because of the summer recess and not being able to get there until August. So that's actually what we were thinking. So at these point, we'd be happy to work on Commissioner Cease's comments and work on that with staff. But yeah, we were really hoping to get through city council before the summer break. So, yeah. Bill Dirks, our engineer.
Bill Dirks with McAdams. And I just want to talk to the pedestrian plan and make sure that I was understanding. We were proposing a lot of pedestrian interconnectivity from the site. The site specific plans haven't been developed yet to show exactly where those are, but certainly the extension of the outdoor plaza is in consideration. We have another connection to the tobacco trail, both east and west, to make those connectivities. I understand your statement about not turning our back on those, but just the amount of connectivity, I think that we've shown certainly additional improvements to what's there now.
And I appreciate that, and I can imagine the types of conversations and explorations because of the market realities of it, right? But in terms of the entitlement document that's in front of us, those could be met with a sidewalk and through parking. There's no discussion of how buildings may be oriented, and I am quite confident that your team could come up with some simple descriptive elements and phrases that could really convey a lot to address not just my concerns, but a lot of the concerns.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Especially with regards, again, especially with regards to the American Tobacco Trail, because we know Fayetteville, Renaissance Parkway are auto dominant and will be for a long time. The Tobacco Trail's not.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. We can commit to work on wordsmithing commitments that we would add to our plan, but I'm afraid it sounds like a delay would punt us till late summer or early fall, and that would be that'd be really tough given the given where we are in terms of needing to move forward with what we have. Yeah, it's just such an uncertain market that waiting longer is, unfortunately, could be very detrimental. So we appreciate it. We wish it could work, but we would respectfully ask for a vote tonight. And that way we could at least hopefully get to city council before the summer recess. But I'm sorry that didn't work out.
Okay. So I guess, not to beat this dead horse too much, but I'm hearing that even if we move forward tonight, you may not make it before the summer recess.
Right, but if we don't move forward tonight, there's absolutely no chance. So if I understood, is that a fair statement? I don't want to speak for the staff, obviously.
That is a fair statement. There's no way. I mean, if it were to be delayed after tonight, there's no way, there's no chance it would make it before summer break. And I'm just saying, I can't promise that it's going to get there before the summer break anyway, but I know it would not happen if you delayed it tonight. There's no way. So.
Do you have a percentage chance that you would give it?
No.
The season of March Madness, you know.
Okay.
No, we have a lot of cases in play right now. We actually have cases booked out months, and it all depends on who's ready when. Some of our cases that we think are ready, we get ready to take them, to put them in the agenda cycle for city council or board of county commissioners, and something falls out at the last minute and they're not ready. That's why I say I'm just not sure. I can't answer that question.
Okay. So I'll get to more of my substantive questions then. First, I just want to confirm that with the structured parking, you're going to be providing the required amount of parking so that you don't need a variance or any additional hearing on this case.
That's our understanding.
Okay. Secondly, I guess you're already increasing the density to where on parts of the site you can go up to 145 feet, on other parts you can go to 120 feet. And so I guess part of my question is, at that point you're in high-rise development, you're not using sticks anymore, so why not add 2 more stories to add affordable housing for some of that?
But the 7-story, the 120, we would still try to stick build, right? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's probably what would not be stick built, Chairman Amendolia, would be the non-residential uses, hotel or office. So I think anything that would be multifamily will be stick built per North Carolina Building Code.
Got it. So my next question then, and Patrick, you and I have come across this before. I start to feel uneasy when I see things like up to as all of the commitments, because there's up to 300,000 office, up to 1,300 units of housing. It could be 0. My speculation is, given the market dynamics, that you can't do the office and the retail without the residential financially, but I would like to see a minimum. It would make me feel more comfortable to know we are indeed going to get a mix of uses. Obviously, the mall's already there, so if you just had some houses, that would help. But I would ask you to consider providing kind of minimums of each of those uses to, give a little bit more specificity to what can be on site. Those are all my questions. I just have a couple more comments. Right now, the AMC Theater at Southpoint is hiring a part-time position starting at $12 an hour. If we're generous and say that person works 25 hours a week, they make $1,200 a month. And my speculation is that's not going to be enough for them to afford an apartment on site where they don't need to have a bus fare or have a vehicle to get to work. And that is one of the things that is concerning to me about this site. It is transformational in many ways, and it has the opportunity to be more transformational. But when I start to hear people talk about, we're going to put market rate housing here and we're going to put affordable housing somewhere else, that sounds a lot like a road we've been down before in this country that I don't support. It sounds a lot like segregation. And I don't like that. I don't like that we're starting to get into a pattern where we say we're going to approve market rate development, and then somewhere else down the line, we're going to help out some affordable housing developers. I'm supportive of the affordable housing piece of it, and I'm supportive of adding 1,300 units on site. I think that's great. It's exciting. But this loop we're starting to get into where we're having to put some housing on sites and other low-income housing on other sites and put low-income people in different places than middle and higher-income people, that I don't feel comfortable with that. And I think that's a fundamental issue with this site is what you're doing is you're creating a market where the commercial space, the retail space, the office space is going to be catering to people of a certain income, while the people that are serving, the people working in that office space can't live on site. That's wrong. And that's my fundamental problem with this. From a market perspective, this is a no-brainer, right? Malls are not what they used to be 20 years ago. Malls across the country are doing things like this, and they need to be. And it's a good opportunity to do this type of mixed-use development. But there's a way to do it, and this doesn't feel like it's hitting all those marks. It feels like it is falling just short. I would feel more comfortable if we had the details at this time about the affordable housing proffer you've alluded to, which I understand why that's still in the works. But taking this case for what it is now, I feel hesitant. And I will be very specific about that in my written comments, that is my problem with this, that if I zoom out and I'd say, put affordable housing aside for a second, which like is hard for me to do because that's something I'm passionate about, but if I put that aside, yes, I would do this 10 out of 10 times. The affordable housing component where people cannot work and live on site is a big hang up for me. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so with that, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I would entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we take case Z2200028, the streets at Southpoint Mall, number 2, to be forwarded to the City Council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Valentine. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, may we have the roll call vote?
Chair Amendolia.
No.
Vice Chair Cameron.
Yes.
Commissioner Baker.
No.
Commissioner Cutright.
No.
Commissioner Chigars.
No.
Commissioner Davis.
No.
Commissioner McIver.
No.
Commissioner Morgan.
Yes.
Commissioner Cease.
No.
Commissioner Trapp.
Wholeheartedly, yes.
Commissioner Valentine.
No.
Commissioner Carmen Williams.
No.
Commissioner Zuri Williams.
No.
The motion fails 3-10.
Thank you. Thank you to the applicant. Thanks to staff. To the applicant, again, I hope this does not come across as we don't like what you're doing. We want more. We want to serve everyone who's going to need to be served on site. We're going to move forward to the next case. This is case Z2200032 Harlowe Point. We'll begin with the staff report.
Thank you, Chair. Andy Lester with the Planning Department. This case is Z2200032 Harlowe Point for proposed zoning map change. The properties are located at 1005, 1009, 1011, 1019, and 1023 South Mineral Springs Road, and 3712 Holder Road. The site is 6 parcels of land totaling 53.45 acres. It is within the suburban development tier. 5 acres are currently within the city. There is a concurrent annexation petition, case BDG 2200019 for 1019 South Mineral Springs Road to be brought into the city from the county. The existing zoning is split zone plan development residential 4.001 and residential suburban 20. The applicant is intending to bring the RS20 parcel into the existing PDR development. This requires all of the site to be rezoned. The applicant is proposing to rezone the entire site to plan development residential 3.949 zoning and maintaining the maximum number of 191 single-family units allowed under the previously approved development plan. This is a rezoning with a graphic development plan associated with the proposal. The existing future land use map designation is low-medium density residential. The proposed plan development residential 3.949 is inconsistent with the low-medium density flume designation. Staff would recommend a change to this designation to low-density residential. Lastly, this project is located in the Falls Jordan District B watershed protection overlay. The existing zoning is plan development residential 4.001 and residential suburban 20. The site is surrounded by residential suburban 20 and residential rural to the west, north, and east. To the south is planned development residential zoning district. The aerial map shows the general location of the project. Bankit and developed single-family lots are generally to the west, north, and east. The Hanover Point subdivision is to the south. A development plan is included. in this proposal. 5 site access points are proposed by public street connection, one being to the west with a stub out to South Mineral Springs Road, the second being to the north with a stub out to Holder Road, the third being to the east for future connection, the fourth and fifth being to the south with a stub out to Red Robin Road and a future connection. Little Lick Creek runs through the southeast portion of the site, and the applicant has provided the required 100-foot stream buffer and 10-foot building setback from the buffer edge. The development plan indicates 5 utility crossings and no vehicular stream crossings. As the site is within the watershed protection overlay, the proposal provides the required maximum 70% impervious surface area. It also provides 23.72% tree preservation, 45.54% open space, and 39.29% usable open space. The applicant has included graphic and text commitments. The first is limiting the use to 191 single-family units, a proffer of $22,000 donation to Durham Public Schools, a donation of $28,650 donation to the Dedicated Housing Fund, construction of the 10-foot multi-use path along the frontage of South Mineral Springs and Holder Road, 12.82 acres of tree preservation, 45.54% of open space, and 39.29% of usable open space. Traffic improvements include turn lanes on South Mineral Springs Road and site access 1. Traffic signal at the intersection of South Mineral Springs Road and Holder Road. 2-way left turn lane on South Mineral Springs Road between Holder Road and Grimes Road. The dedication of 10-foot right-of-way for the frontage of the site along Mineral Springs Road. Some design commitments include listing of the building materials, options for building roof design, and requiring each dwelling unit to have a minimum outdoor deck, porch, or patio of at least 40 square feet in area. A neighborhood meeting was held in accordance with the UDO requirements on May 3rd, 2022. 12 community members were in attendance. 1 survey response and 4 comments were provided on Social Pinpoint with concerns of traffic along South Mineral Springs Road. Staff determines that the proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan and other adopted plans and policies. The proposal increases the supply of housing stock available to Durham residents. And while this decreases the overall density of the PDR district, the increased area eliminates site constraints to accommodate the construction of additional dwelling units to reach the maximum units allowed under the previously approved Z19-00019 development plan. The proposal is inconsistent with the existing future land use map. If approved, staff recommends the future land use designation for the site to be changed to low-density residential. Staff and the applicant are here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. This time we're going to open the public hearing. We'll begin with the applicant presentation.
Someone left their coffee cup up here or something. But good evening, Chair Amendolia, Vice Chair Cameron, and members of the Planning Commission. I am Neil Ghosh with the Morningstar Law Group at 700 West Main Street in Durham. I'm representing the applicant for this project, which is Lennar. I want to say thank you to Mr. Lester for your presentation. I'll try to be brief because this is a small case. I know the application says 53.45 acres, but really this is about 0.63 acres in total because the other 52.82 acres already is zoned. Not only is it zoned, but there also is an approved site plan for it, and it already is under construction. So the story here is that the previous owner of this 0.63 acre parcel was a holdout from the original zoning, which Lennar was not a part of. But once Lennar started building, that owner wanted to get out. So Lennar bought the property in May of last year, kind of as a way to be a good neighbor. And so I think the question is, so why rezone? The simple answer is because This little 0.63 acre parcel is a small donut hole in the city's jurisdiction. It's a tiny piece surrounded entirely by property in the city. So to fix that, Lennar is seeking to annex this piece of property into the city limits. And because Lennar already controls and is developing the surrounding property, the best way to rezone this small piece is to add it to the existing PDR. Nothing about the original PDR changes other than the acreage, which increases, and as a result, the density, which decreases. But the total number of units allowed remains the same. Total amount of open space, total amount of tree preservation, all those things remain the same as previously approved. And that's it. There's not a whole lot to this project. And I will mention that there's a site plan approved. I've already mentioned that. The site plan has 172 units approved on it. The zoning allows for 191. We have estimated that by adding this into the original PDR, we might be able to amend the site plan to add a few more units, but not up to 191 units. We're talking about 0.63 acres, so it's not going to be possible to get up to 191 units total. And that's all there is to it. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. We had one other person sign up to speak in person on this case, and if there's anyone listening in on the Zoom call who would like to speak on this case, please raise your hand at this time. The one person we have signed up in person is Dun T. Ron. Yes, you can come up to the podium. You'll have 2 minutes to provide your comments. Please state your name and address and then make your comments.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry again. My English is my second language. Maybe something you can understand. Please raise your voice. I'm so sorry about that. But however, I again rezoned it because I had a little property just 600 feet away from that company. And with the development they have, I will pay more taxes without no benefit, no water, no street, no nothing go to my property. And I need to be paid tax for that, increasing by rezoning. And the second thing, in that company is no respect at all for my property. They just passed in my property, they stole my property, include I call in the sales department, the police department out there, they don't do nothing about them. And I'm so stressful about it because right now I need to deal with all kinds, the way it needs to be done, the trick is messed up completely. I had no way to roll to my property no more. And now I need to pay tax for this, even increasing the rezone it. So all my property, we went up the taxes. And I pay all the high taxes without no trick, no water, no nothing on my property. That is not fair. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Seeing no one else in person wishing to speak, yes, if you can come to the podium, state your name and address, and make your comments.
Good afternoon to each and every one of you all. My name is James Chambers. I'm the co-facilitator for PAC District 1, which this area y'all are talking about is in our district. And as from a child going down that way, I know about that area because Lynn Road used to take us all the way into Raleigh. Now it can't because of all the new construction. But I'm here to tell you tonight that they are forcing the same thing y'all just got to talking about with the other, they're doing it there too. They are forcing the people to sell their land because they cannot stay there. Is this fair? How can you have diversity when you got these big corporations coming here that got the money and push out the people that's already there to make them more money, and then they leave, and when they leave, all the other destruction they give, the taxpayers have to pay for it. So I'm asking you all, just like you did on that last one, please take more concern of the people that stand around there. Because these corporations are not for the Durhamites that's already here. They're for the money that they can get and leave, but leave the trash for us to pay taxes on. Just like he said, my taxes went up 3 times the value in 1 year because of the same thing. Is that fair to us? And are you really representing us as citizens and hearing us out? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in person wishing to speak on this issue tonight? Okay, seeing none, we're going to turn to our Zoom participants. I see one person with their hand raised, Rebecca Freeman.
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. I'm Rebecca Freeman, and I live at 1818 Southpoint Road in Durham. And good evening, Planning Commission, Amendolia, and all the commission members. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this development plan tonight. From what I was able to tell from the details that I got off the plan that was posted, these are my comments. I have a comment on the tree preservation. The great majority of tree preservation, is my understanding, is on the stream buffer and therefore is not usable. And I would like to see more tree preservation in areas of the housing unit to add a better environmental feature for the houses that would be constructed there. Number 2 is there is no stormwater controls specified on the plan. And number 3, the water and sewer impacts, the capacity to serve this proposal is identified as under current review. And I believe that there should be specified and verified that the capacity is available for the houses and the additional homes that will be coming to this particular development. Number 4, I think that the borders that are on some of the perimeters should be greater than 10 feet and a greater opacity, closer to 6.6, and there being a greater attention to the Durham open space plan that is not identified as having been planned for on these plans. Then number 6 is certainly the traffic congestion. It's a very real problem in this area. There are 2 active development cases in this area already, and the heavily congested traffic problem that is there is only going to be compounded. And I also want to call attention to the pinpoint comments of the neighbors in very close proximity to this development. I wanted to make some comments on the evaluation.
Rebecca, your 2 minutes are over.
Okay, thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you. Next, we have Pamela Andrews.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Pamela Andrews, 6108 Wake Forest Highway. I know this is a small parcel that's being added to the current project, so I understand that it's a very small decision tonight, but I would like you to really listen to what the gentleman said earlier and Mr. Chavis. As these homeowners that are surrounding these large developments are facing huge impacts on their tax rates, impacts on the noise around them, that they finally just decide, I can't take it anymore, and I'm willing to put my property up just to get away and to remove myself from this intense noise every single day between blasting and machinery. So I just want you to consider that as you look at each one of these parcels, the impact it has on people around them that have no say. And I truly feel sorry for the gentleman that spoke earlier. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is anyone else looking to speak on this case tonight? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Ghosh, you had about 8 minutes left of your time if you want to use any of it. Or I'm sorry, 7 minutes of your time.
Sure. I would want, the gentleman who spoke after me, I would, right here, like to talk to you some more. I'm not real sure where your property is. I didn't quite get that down. Want to try to understand what's going on there. But, you know, aside from that, I don't know that there's a whole lot to address here. The development is already underway for all but the 0.63 acres. Site plan's been approved. CDs have been granted. Site's been cleared. And, you know, I think it would be maybe a little bit disingenuous to make commitments here related to the development of the property. It's already being developed under the current zoning. And I don't know what, like, in full transparency, so that's what it's going to be developed as. Hopefully, I think you can understand where I'm coming from on this, but I think in Lennar's hands, it's essentially add this to the PDR or leave it in the county.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we'll turn it over to commissioner questions and comments. Commissioner Morgan.
Quick question for the applicant. There's no other changes from the prior approved plan from years ago, other than incorporating this parcel?
Right, so the acreage goes up. As a result, the density goes down.
No other text commitments or other items?
So technically, I think the answer is yes. Somehow, when this plan was approved, there were no design commitments on it in 19. I'm looking at planning staff if you. Yeah, so the design commitments, I guess, are technically new.
Okay.
But they're representative of what's being built there.
What's being built. I mean, it's also representative of other items as well, as far as choice of design or whatever for the.
Like materials, roof line, that type of, yeah, I think that's what the design commitments refer to. And if memory serves, somehow the original development plan was approved without any design commitments.
I just want to be aware if there's nothing else being slipped in here.
Oh, that's correct. Yeah, I forgot about that. The other change, in the original development plan, there was a requirement for a 5-foot bike lane that had been changed now to a 10-foot shared facility. Okay. So that's another change. So those are the changes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, can staff just confirm that this is all accurate? Not that I don't trust it.
I'm almost offended, but I'm joking.
Just because, you know, reading the staff report didn't really get that narrative. So I just wanted to make sure it all checks out.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we run into this sometimes with the process. Applicants will be advised to include a certain parcel in a project to start with. We can't force them to. They don't. I could see in the notes that they were advised on this one. Sounds like for an ownership reason that the person did not want to be a part of the project. Now they do. We would have liked this to be a part of it the first time around. There's no additional commitments. There were no design commitments in the original development plan. That's correct. That does not mean that some cannot be proffered. However, Mr. Ghosh is correct. This is in the site plan already approved phase. It's pretty much under development. If you went back and required some sort of commitments tonight, they would have to retroactively apply them to something that's already being built.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify that, especially for the folks who came here to speak and who spoke online, is that at this stage, we have very little control over what can happen. And this body has been pretty consistent in some of its concern over some of the sprawl that's been happening in Durham. But again, we don't have final say over what happens, even on cases that are not already under construction. So something to be aware of. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from commissioners? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and I would accept a motion at this time.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make, go ahead. No, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a,
Sorry, I am going to interrupt you real quick. Yeah, if you could come to the podium.
I'm sorry again. That is the first time I received a letter to go to hearing for that process. And even I've owned the property for over 3 years, I cannot be sure, but that's the first time I hear it, but I will upset the way they do on my property.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, go ahead and make a motion to take case Z2200032 Harlowe Point to be forwarded to the City Council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Cease. Is there any discussion on the motion? I would just say to the people who spoke tonight, we hear your concerns, and we think about that consistently when we look at cases. Because of the nature of this case and it already being developed, it's hard for us to do much here. And this is also a place where I think our city overall can do a better job funding residents and homeowners and helping them to be able to stay in their homes as new development occurs. With that, may we have the roll call vote?
Chair Amendolia,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cameron,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Cutright,
Yes.
Commissioner Chagaris,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner MacGyver,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Cease,
Yes.
Commissioner Trapp,
Yes.
Valentine,
Yes.
Commissioner Carmen Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Zuri Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 13-0.
Thank you. We are approaching our 2-hour break for our closed captioners. So we're going to go ahead and break, and we will return at 7:40 p.m.
So Tasha, how do you determine what kind of repairs are actually needed on a street?
So there are various factors that we consider. First is the PCI, what is the condition of the road as it was last rated? And then we look at the condition of the road in real time. So if the road is in good condition, we perform a specific category of repairs. If the road is in fair condition, there's another category of repairs. And if it's in poor condition, yet another category that we can apply. Cracks and the type of distress also impacts the type of treatment you will see even within the good to fair category.
If you want to make a difference in our community while enjoying a fulfilling and rewarding career, there may be a position here at the City of Durham with your name on it. We're hosting a job fair on Monday, March 20th from 1 to 6 p.m. at the Durham Convention Center, and we'd love for you to come check out all the positions available. There are openings in public safety as a 911 call taker and as fire and police recruits. We also have positions in operations, such as equipment, vehicle, and street maintenance, groundskeeping, heavy equipment operators and technicians, and water plant operators and mechanics. If you're looking for a more administrative role, there are openings in administration and customer service, as well as in engineering. Bring your resume and be prepared to potentially participate in on-site interviews. To see all available job openings, go to durhamnc.gov.info/jobs-2023.
Here's some tips to ensure that your garbage and recycling gets picked up. 1. Your carts should be put out for collection before 6 a.m. on your collection day. 2. Your carts should be at least 3 feet from all other objects such as mailboxes, telephone poles, fire hydrants, trees, and other carts. 3. Your carts should be no more than 3 feet from the curb. 4. No vehicles should be blocking your carts. The mechanical arms on our trucks need direct access to your carts and cannot reach around vehicles. To find more information about garbage and recycling pickups, go to this web address.
My younger sister was someone that never got involved with bad people. She was a selfless person, and her life was taken away by her boyfriend due to gun violence in front of her 3 younger kids.
I was in my car. I heard loud gunfire. Didn't know where I got shot. Was dramatic and experience I couldn't, want anybody to live through. Gun violence can happen any given time, anywhere. I'm truly blessed to be alive today.
The person that did this to my sister is still on the loose, and we want justice for my sister and for my nephews. We don't want for this to happen to another woman out there. Don't stay quiet. Don't be afraid to talk.
I like being there for people. I like when my investigators and I go out there that we're out there with a specific purpose, and that's to try to bring somebody to justice on behalf of a citizen to get a violent criminal off the streets.
I'm born and raised in Durham. I still have family members here, classmates, friends. It's personal for me.
We see on the news constantly the numbers of shootings is in the hundreds. Last year is pushing 1,000. So you would think that around every corner there's somebody with a gun ready to shoot. But through our investigations, we've learned that the percentage of the population that's committing a lot of these shootings is very low compared to the number of shootings were actually happening. Members of the community can help make it safer. If they'd seen something in their neighborhood, please call us, let us know.
There are creative ways to be able to solve crimes, and that's through anonymous information through avenues such as Crime Stoppers.
Getting that information in the hands of police and investigators, it's critical because a lot of stuff we can have ideas of what happened, but if we can't prove it in court, justice isn't going to be served. Just give us the information to help point us in the right direction.
Okay, we are returning from recess. We will move on to our next rezoning case. This is case Z2200037 Leesville Storage. We will begin with the staff report.
Thank you. Andy Lester with the Planning Department. This case is Z2200037 Leesville Storage for a proposed zoning map change. The properties are located at 4615 and 4627 Leesville Road. The site is 2 parcels totaling 22.353 acres. It is within the suburban development tier and within the county. No annexation is proposed in conjunction with this rezoning. The existing zoning is split zoned commercial general with a development plan and residential rural. The applicant is proposing to rezone the entire property to commercial general with a development plan to accommodate a self-storage use. This is a rezoning with a graphic development plan associated with the proposal. The existing future land use map designation is commercial and low-density residential. The proposed commercial general with the development plan is inconsistent with the low-density residential flume designation. Staff would recommend a change to this designation for the entire site to commercial. Lastly, the property is located in the Falls Jordan District B watershed protection overlay. The existing zoning is commercial general with a development plan and residential rural. The site is surrounded by residential rural, planned development residential, industrial, and commercial general zoning districts. This aerial map shows the general location of the project. To the west and south are commercial industrial uses along US 70. Generally to the east and north is undeveloped agricultural land. The site is specifically adjacent to the Parcel K development, which includes 837 number of dwelling units. A development plan is included in this proposal. 3 site access points are proposed, one being to the south with a stub out provided by a private driveway connection to Leesville Road. The second and third being to the west with a stub out, each provided by a private driveway connection. An intermittent stream is located on the western portion of the site, and the applicant has provided the required 100-foot stream buffer and the 10-foot building setback from the buffer edge. No vehicular stream crossings have been proposed. As the site is within the watershed protection overlay, the proposal provides the required maximum 70% impervious surface area. It also provides 10.3% tree preservation that exceeds the UDO minimums. Some of the commitments include use limits to self-storage, 10.3% tree preservation, a maximum building square footage of 345,000 square feet. Some traffic improvements include construction of an exclusive northbound left lane on Leesville Road for site access number 1, construction of a 10-foot shared path for the full frontage of the site along the west side of Leesville Road, and dedication of right-of-way for the future construction of a cul-de-sac bulb for site access 3. Some design commitments include roof lines for all structures to be flat roof with parapets with shed roofs with parapets, and designed so that stormwater runoff will be directed to the flow toward the stormwater BMP, and they do clarify use of combination of materials. A neighborhood meeting was held in accordance with the UDO requirements on June 28th, 2022. No community members were in attendance. 1 survey response was provided on Social Pinpoint with concerns for hours of operation. Staff determines that the proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan and other adopted plans and policies. The proposal would provide a specific commercial convenience to a growing residential area. Surrounding zoning designations of adjacent properties are a mix of commercial, industrial, and residential. The proposal is partially inconsistent with the existing future land use map. If approved, staff recommends the future land use map designation for the entire site to be changed to commercial. Staff and the applicant are available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will open the public hearing and we will begin with the applicant presentation.
Good evening, Chairman Amendolia, Vice Chair Cameron, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Patrick Biker. I still live at 2614 Stewart Drive. I'm an attorney with Morningstar Law Group, and I'm representing Warren Mitchell with Leesville Storage Partners, LLC. Leesville Storage Partners is requesting a zoning map change at 4615 and 4627 Leesville Road to commercial general with a development plan. And of course, the purpose of this rezoning is to allow us to build a self-storage facility at this location. To start off, I'd like to quote from page 11 of your staff report, which states that in staff's opinion, quote, "This proposal is in the public interest as it would provide a specific commercial convenience in proximity to a growing residential area," unquote. In addition to that, there are several additional reasons for supporting this request. I'd like to briefly highlight 4 of them. First, approval of this rezoning will move the access point for this development east up Leesville Road, further away from US 70, therefore enhancing traffic safety. Furthermore, our development plan proposes stub-out connections, right-of-way dedication, and multi-use path improvements that will potentially increase walkability and connectivity to the surrounding areas. Second, by providing additional tree preservation areas and removing the possibility of a vehicular stream crossing, this project makes an effort to provide a development that is environmentally respectful. Third, the site for the proposed storage facility is appropriate for the intended use, given that it is very close to Highway 70, which is a major commercial thoroughfare. And fourth, the applicant has met with members of the community and has encountered no significant pushback to this proposal that we're aware of this evening. In conclusion, the project provides a viable commercial use at an appropriate area, commits to protecting more open space than required, and to making site improvements to improve local connectivity. Accordingly, we respectfully request your approval. Our team will be happy to answer any questions. We thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we're going to turn to public comment. We have 2 people who signed up to speak in person, and then we'll go to our Zoom participants. If you're in the Zoom meeting, please go ahead and start raising your hand to queue yourself up. In person, we have Herman Spelling and Stephen Nill.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Herman Sperling. I reside at 2628 Bloomsbury Manor Drive in Durham. I am in favor of this project for a simple reason. It's in the public good. My community in Carolina Arbors has 1,292 homes, and one of our covenants says that owners can only park 1 car in their driveway. Without a basement, they store a lot of things in their garage, and that creates a hardship for many people because they have no place to go. This will provide immediate access to conditioned storage space, and it will help people. Second reason is because we are very concerned about traffic on Leesville Road, in particular in the intersection of Highway 70 and Leesville. And I can't think of any type of building that would have less traffic than what is being proposed. So progress is we're going to move forward. There's going to be building in Durham. If there's something that serves our interest, both in developing the capacity to store and also to create the least traffic impact, that sounds to me like a good project. To that end, last night I had the occasion to meet with many of the leaders of Fendel Farms, a community of about 600 single-family houses near us, and my own community, Carolina Arbors, with the president of our HOA. They are in favor of this project. I know that's not a statistically relevant number, but it is some impact. I am reporting some reaction from the local community. With that, I thank you very much for your time.
Stephen Nill, 1021 Restoration Drive, co-founder of the Leesville Road Coalition with Herman. I'd like to mention that. The value rule of real estate is best and highest use. As Patrick and Herman both said, this proposed storage unit facility is situated right where it's needed. We've been kind of opposed to a lot of the development out in Leesville in the area, although city councilors approved almost 10,000 new homes. NCDOT has told us that those homes will contribute 2 times the maximum of their number for how many cars that we can handle. There's no public transportation. Chief Zoldis has said that there is no fire capacity beyond once they build all this stuff out. And the MPO is planning to turn US 70 near us into a parking lot with a boulevard. So we can't think of anything better than something that's not going to bring a whole lot more traffic and a whole lot more people right to this specific area. And as Herman said, people relocating to this area, especially those people who are living in the 3,000 active adult homes, unfortunately have a lot of stuff. They've moved here to downsize to a smaller home, except they haven't gotten rid of anything. So their garages are all full, and they just can't seem to part with grandma's favorite chair, dad's service photos. And yes, younger millennials are not coveting this stuff as much as previous generations, but that still leaves about 50 years worth of stuff to find a home, as younger boomers and older millennials are still keeping it. So we're supportive of this, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people using it. It'll be very successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else attending in person who would like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to our Zoom participants. We'll begin with Carrie Steinbeck. I suspect this is Donna.
It is. Somehow they keep messing up the correspondence, but this is Donna Steinbeck at 4825 Jimmy Rogers Road in Durham, North Carolina. Good evening, Durham Planning Commissioners and participants. I am concerned with this plan due to the lack of a stormwater plan and the probable use of blasting. This is for 22 acres of soil to be mass graded, and this is in the Lick Creek watershed, and the proximity to the Lick Creek tributary is 1,200 feet. A major concern is that there was no commitment made in the zone map change report. It said no information available. These plans will be made in site planning. Well, I've stated this before, this is too late for public input. The plans that will be assessed at the site planning will probably be using minimums like 10 to 50, 25-year events, and we've got this Lick Creek and we've got the Triassic Basin soil. The amount of impervious soil is less than 70% of the site, and the slope is steep. Most of the tree preservation of only 10.3% is in the wetlands, yet we need trees to help slow down the amount of the watershed. The sediment ponds, in the area are not working well. Blasting is likely since the proposal has so much impervious soil, and the slopes range from 444 feet to 376 feet. The high point is less than 100 feet from the road and is 500 feet from the horse farm across the roadway. There are 3 or 4 other farms with goats.
Donna, your 2 minutes are over.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Pam Williams.
Good afternoon, Durham Planning Commissioners and participants. Pam Williams, 2130 Adventure Trail, Durham, North Carolina. I have concerns on the proposed self-storage business, tree preservation numbers, and offset of buildings along the right-of-way. The draft comprehensive plan states that new development should include tree coverage beyond required by development regulation and protect and respect the existing character. There are 3 to 4 functioning farms in this area within 2,000 feet and all single-family homes. Only 2.3 acres of the tree preservation for this site of 22 acres is being provided, and this site has over 4,000 linear feet of perimeter boundary. Only providing 2.3 acres is small considering the size, the need of mature trees. Most of the tree preservation as shown appears to be within the proposed buffers of the wetland or the intermittent stream. Thus, we have to assume that this site will be graded from property line to property line as to provide a flat grade required for this type of business. We are requesting that a 30-foot natural boundary be provided along the entire perimeter that will maintain the existing tree canopy as much as possible, and that is recommended in the proposed UDO text amendment regarding phase development tree preservation. Maintaining mature tree canopy will reduce stormwater runoff and treatment, reduce storm erosion, reduce heat island effect, improve local air water quality, filter air pollutions, and it will enhance the facility and many other benefits of the diverse animal and habitat and food. In addition, we are requesting that a 50-foot boundary be provided the entire length along the Leesville Road with the 08 capacity to conserve or provide scenic views from the public roadway and not provide additional hardscape. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, we have Pamela Andrews.
Good evening, Planning Commission. Thank you for your time. I just want to say very quickly, the neighborhood meetings are so low because this is at the point where very almost nobody knew about them. And I do commend the planning department for putting these on the weekly updates that we receive, as well as now extending out to 1,000 feet. So we are getting more notifications and putting more input into these neighborhood meetings. But I want to just bring up very quickly another 22 acres in the Lick Creek watershed. I hope you all saw Samantha Kropp's presentation last week at the work session. If you didn't, please watch it. It's very powerful to show how much this mass grading has had an impact on our environment in Southeast Durham. 10.3% of 22 acres is only a little over 2 acres of tree preservations, if I understood the numbers correctly. The proximity to this site is only 1,200 feet from a tributary that feeds Lick Creek, so more tomato soup will abound. Again, please watch the presentation by Samantha Kropp, the News Riverkeeper, last week. We know 2 text amendments are on the way. One's erosion control amendment, one's tree preservations. But if these things continue to be passed, these amendments will have no impact on them, and we desperately need them. Again, horse farms are close by. Dynamite blasting will ensue. More than likely, it has on all the other sites. That's just not good for the animals in our environment. So we ask you to seriously consider. Again, it's less traffic, as Herman and Stephen Neal mentioned, but we're also concerned about the mass grading because it's impacted Lick Creek. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else hoping to speak on this case at this time? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner question and comment. Commissioner.
Question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question in regards to something that came up on Social Pinpoint about hours of operation.
Sure. Good evening, Warren Mitchell. I live at 104 Amberwood Run, Chapel Hill. We currently, my partner and I, who's sitting over here, we currently own a facility on Highway 64 in Chatham County, and the hours of operation usually, so when we add the self-storage, we have those hours from 6 to 11. Sometimes we do have a lot of boat or RV customers that are getting an early start and, going on their vacation. They do need to sometimes come in early in the morning, so we don't limit those hours, but the boat and RV traffic is quite low. It just even lower than self-storage, which is low in itself. So a lot of people don't use the toys that they purchase, but they can't leave them at home. They want to keep them covered and safe, and just need a place to put them. But I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, I think I've heard that the best 2 days of having a boat are the day you buy it and the day you sell it. So thank you.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Commissioner Baker.
So some of the
concerns, and I think that I support the use here. But this is a very large site, and it is kind of surprising to see the percentage for tree preservation at only 10.3. So could applicant speak a little bit to that percentage? Can go up. I am concerned about,
yes,
all of the development that's happening in that area and the blasting.
Okay, sure.
Can you also speak to the blasting, stormwater issues, and one of the comments was about a 30-foot natural boundary. If you could talk about that, those 4 issues.
Okay, so first on the, since you brought up the tree preservation and the size of the property, a large part of this property is a Duke Power right-of-way. So maybe in response to you and the callers, a lot of the property cannot be used. We know for a fact that Duke doesn't allow any use in their easement, and that also leaves a little bit of the property on the other side of the easement not usable. As far as and so I think that so my response is there's going to be much more than 10% not being used. Mm-hmm. In addition, the blasting, I know the caller's probably referring to some of the residential developments where they have to blast, usually because of the utilities, getting the stormwater and the sewer in deep. We don't have any utilities here, it'll just be buildings. So you're not going down deep. There will be some storm drainage, but we had some geotechnical work done already in borings, and it looks like we will be above any rock. I don't think anybody in this room wants blasting any less than my partner and I, because it's very expensive. So at this point, I don't see any blasting happening because of the geotechnical work we had done. And then regarding the buffer, a thin natural buffer is not nearly as effective as a planted buffer, where you can combine deciduous, evergreens. They grow up, they're low, they have a chance to thrive because they're not in a canopy. So our goal is to have a really attractive landscape buffer along Leesville to be planted. There's really nothing there now. There's a single family home with no buffer in front. There's a little bit of woods. And then we've had the original parcel that was approved years ago, that was already denuded. And so there's really nothing in terms of a perimeter buffer to save. And regarding the side properties, which is the parcel K, that's their main entrance. Due to the slope there, we do not want to save the trees. I think the other theory is that with the evergreens, we can get a much thicker buffer than leaving a thin stand of pine trees. So, large groups of trees is always beneficial. Thin buffers of pines that are mature is usually not. Just putting a 20 or 30 foot wide stand of natural trees is not always the best buffer. 35 years in the business, that's what I've seen. A planted buffer can be a better screen. So is that fully addressed most of the questions?
Yeah. And staff, are we happy with the stormwater commitments that are made? Are they for best practices? And
one more comment actually on stormwater. Thank you for bringing that up. The original plan, we were doing low density, which was we had just a small area of boat and RV storage on the first parcel. So that would not have required all the stormwater commitments using low-density stormwater approach, whereas when you go into the high-density option, then you have to meet all of the stormwater conditions. So that's also why this more impervious, but potentially a better.
We can speak to that, Commissioner Baker. So at site plan, they'd be required to meet the 1, 2, or 10-year storm event, 24-hour peak event. There is no additional commitment on this development plan other than the roof commitment that the roof will be designed to direct the water towards the BMPs, which is a more creative commitment that we haven't seen in a lot of other projects, but they are not committing to any excess stormwater commitments in excess of the ordinance otherwise.
What are some of those, can you remind me what some of those commitments are that we've seen in the past?
Yeah, the most common one we've seen is to detain at the 100-year stormwater 24-hour peak event at something like 90%.
Okay. Is that something you'd be interested in committing?
I don't know at this point what those commitments would have as a effect on the site or the size, but I do believe that the city's stormwater regulations are pretty robust. No?
Yeah, I think if I could add one thing, Commissioner Baker, the challenge on this site is the power easement that's on site. In the old days, we could put BMPs in power easements. Duke Power won't let us do that anymore. So that's you got to keep in mind, there's the jurisdictional stream buffer on the, what's called the west side of the site. And then you got the power easement. And that's, unfortunately, that really hampers the site in order to explore whether or not it'd be possible to build a big enough BMP to handle the 100-year storm. But our impression is the answer would be no.
Just in terms of the size of the site?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. It's going to be a big building?
Probably several smaller buildings, not what you're used to seeing multi-story, probably more the different short buildings.
Yeah, smaller, yeah.
Other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we take Z2200037 Leesville Storage to be forwarded to the County Commission with a favorable recommendation.
Second. Moved by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Valentine. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, may we have the roll call vote?
Chair Amendolia?
No.
Vice Chair Cameron?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Cutright?
Yes.
Commissioner Chagaris?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner McIver?
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yes.
Commissioner Cease?
Yes.
Commissioner Trapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Valentine?
Yes.
Commissioner Carmen Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuri Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 12-1.
Thank you. Great, we will move to our last rezoning case of the evening. That's case Z2200045 602 North Hoover Road. We will begin with the staff presentation.
Thank you. Andy Lester with the Planning Department. This case is Z2200028 602 North Hoover Road for a proposed zoning map change. The property is located at 602 North Hoover Road, totaling 1.217 acres. The existing zoning is residential suburban 20. The applicant is proposing a general rezoning to industrial light to allow for its corresponding uses. The existing future land use map designation is industrial. The proposed industrial light is consistent with the industrial flume designation. Lastly, this project is located in the Falls Jordan District B watershed. The existing zoning is residential suburban 20. The site is surrounded by residential suburban 20 and industrial light. The aerial map shows the general location of the project. To the east of the site is vacant and industrial land. To the west are single-family residences. A neighborhood meeting was held in accordance with EDO requirements on June 3rd, 2022. 5 community members were in attendance. 1 social pinpoint comment was received by staff in relation to this case with concerns of expanding industrial land. Staff determines this request is consistent with the FLUME, the draft place type map, and the comprehensive plan, and other adopted ordinances and policies. Staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. This time we will open the public hearing. We'll begin with the applicant presentation. You'll have 10 minutes to provide any opening remarks.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you, Chair Amendolia, Vice Chair Cameron, for the opportunity to speak today. Property is 602 North Hoover Road, 1.2 acres from residential to industrial use. It is consistent with the future land use map. The area is industrial as it is. For the neighborhood meeting, we notified residents and property owners and tenants within 1,000 feet of the property. We had those 5 members show up. Within that 1,000 feet, looking at the current zoning map, it's 145 total acres of land in that notification area. 120 acres of that land is industrial or commercial use. So we do believe this is the highest and best use for this property at this time. So I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 1 person signed up to speak in person. If there are Zoom participants who would like to speak on this item, please start raising your hand. So the 1 person who signed up to speak is Tim Blackwell. Tim, if you'll state your name and address, you'll have 2 minutes to provide your comments.
Hello, y'all. Appreciate you. My name's Tim Blackwell, 531 North Hoover Road, pretty much directly across the street from that property. And I'm not against it being zoned, but I'd like to know what are you going to do with it? We've asked that question on the telephone, and nobody would say. There's so many uses, but there's a lot of things that we don't want in the neighborhood.
Sir, if you would like to finish your comments, now is the time for you to provide comments.
I mean, we don't want a correctional facility, adult establishment, hospital, cemeteries, bus stations. I mean, a lot of things would be nice there. Restaurants, the Wheels Fun Park, there used to be Wheels. The city of Durham has bought that. The soccer field's right across the street from Wheels, and the city's turning Wheels into a park. So, you know, we want to keep it a nice neighborhood. I'm not against the trucks that are parked in the lot right across the street from my house. I'm not against that. Warehouse, something like that is no problem. But there are certain things that would be permitted that the neighbors don't want, and I'm one of them. And that's it, I reckon. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this case tonight? Okay, seeing none. To the applicant, you had 8 or 9 minutes if you want to use any of that time to respond now. I think in particular you could address that question.
Yeah, we understand the residents' concern about potential uses. Given that the acreage is only 1.2 acres, setbacks, impervious surfaces, we did demonstrate that there is very limited uses that we can potentially have there. So we most likely are looking at a small office building or warehouse. Bus station is definitely not a question, correctional facility, those types of things. It just would be very limited space. So we expressed that in the neighborhood meeting and follow-up comments and phone calls as well. So it's like I said, it's just a very small lot, so it's just a very limited amount of uses that we can do there. So, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll turn it over to Commissioner questions or comments. Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, one thing we've seen in the past is when there's a great deal of heartburn around a potential rezoning or the new zone that's being requested, we have seen some applicants that have volunteered to limit some of the more intense uses, or at least some of the uses that create more heartburn. And I almost wonder if that's something that you've thought about, or if that's something that you've considered or might want to do here.
Yeah, we would certainly entertain that option. The owner has just wanted to not limit his options in the future, but if that's something that will make it more favorable for recommendation to City Council, we're certainly willing to look at that. Yeah.
Permission to speak? Just want to speak a little bit to maybe what's being referred to as like a textual development plan. This commission saw and approved that amendment, which allows textual development plans to commit to a different additional commitments, not just a use limitation, which would maybe address some of the concerns of the community, but also any other proffers that the applicant would like to make. If that is the route they choose to go, they could pay the difference in fee, do a textual development plan, and still move forward to City Council because they would use it to address some of the concerns that the Planning Commission would bring up.
Thanks for that. So is that something that could be done during this meeting? Or would we have to delay it, or would it have to be
That's a great question. So we can't convert to a textual development plan in the middle of the meeting, unfortunately. But I don't know, Grace, I'll defer to our assistant director on that one.
So Grace Smith, Planning. We had one example of a case that was here before you, and between Planning Commission and City Council, they added a text only and just added use, like restricted some uses that addressed some of your comments. And we allowed that one to move forward and not come back because it was clear it was addressing your comments and your concerns. If it goes above and beyond and it's more like a full-on textual and there's more commitments, it's potential it would have to come back to you. There may be a call that it's a significant change and it needs to come back. But that's what I have seen done in the past, the uses committed to between this meeting and City Council, and paying the slightly different fee and moving forward if it addressed your comments.
Okay, so we can make comments, we can take a vote, make comments regarding the uses. The applicant can work with the gentleman here or other community members that can move forward to the City Council.
Right, if the staff works with the applicant and we determine that what they're proposing pretty much addresses your comments,
okay,
we feel comfortable not bringing it back. But if it's something that we feel like you need to see again, we will bring it back.
Okay. Yep. I'm comfortable with that, and the applicant is a former planning commissioner who I have trust in. So I'm happy with that.
Any other questions or comments? I would just second that I would feel comfortable with that procedure as well. With that, I would I'm going to close the public hearing, and then I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for case number Z2200045, 602 North Hoover Road, rezoning, to be forwarded to the city with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Baker. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Does that need to include anything about the textual comments or that motion, or no?
I don't think so, because I don't think the applicant is committing to do that tonight. I think
okay.
the applicant will just note that we would like for him to do that. Thanks.
Chair, that's correct. I think you would make your recommendation and then make sure that in your comments, you list the things you would like to see if they're going to consider that. And if they don't do that, then why you have concerns.
Yeah. Did you want to add anything, Mr. Santiago?
Yeah, and like I said, we've discussed it before on our team to do that, so we are open to doing it. We just haven't made those commitments on paper yet, but we're definitely open to doing some limitations if that's needed.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Did you want anything further?
Commissioner Carmen Williams.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that we're not committing to anything right now, and the motion has been made and has been properly seconded. I just definitely have concerns about whether or not the resident will be well informed on the limitations and the possibilities with full understanding of what could possibly go there and what the restrictions and the limitations are. We are well versed in how we articulate things. However, the plain text for the community should be such. So saying that we don't want to allow RU whatever in this particular area is not going to be advantageous for the residents. So I want to make sure that in our notes and our comments that we're creating a dialogue space of contingency between the residents as well as the potential developer, because this isn't going to just impact him, but it's going to impact the community, because as I understand it, there's also a place of worship near this place. So we need to be very considerate of the community impacted, not just within proximity right now, but future uses going forward as we're articulating our thoughts. Just want to make sure we're mindful in our comments.
Thank you for that. Okay, at this time, seeing no further discussion, maybe have the roll call vote.
Chair Amendolia.
Yes.
Vice Chair Cameron.
Yes.
Commissioner Baker.
Yes.
Commissioner Cutright.
Yes.
Commissioner Chigars.
Yes.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes.
Commissioner McIver.
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan.
Yes.
Commissioner Cease.
Yes.
Commissioner Trapp.
Yes.
Commissioner Valentine.
Yes.
Commissioner Carmen Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Zuri Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 13-0.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we are done with our public hearings for the evening. So we'll move to our next agenda item. I would just like to state for the record, under old business, we do not have any old business. The item under old business in the agenda that was published has new comprehensive plan. That was a typo. So we'll go to our new business, and we'll begin with the fiscal year 24 Planning Department Work Program.
Thank you, Chair Amendolia. I just wanted to state for the record that our wonderful staff behind the scenes already fixed that typo on the agenda online. So our listeners and people watching at home probably already saw that fixed. So good evening, Chair Amendolia, Vice Chair Cameron, and Planning Commissioners. I'm Grace Smith, one of the Assistant Directors with the Planning Department, and I'm covering the work program item this evening. As you may have seen from the Planning Director's memo included with this item, the department's work program focuses mainly on 3 areas: ongoing projects and processes that reflect legal requirements to respond to things like site plans, zoning map changes, use permits, certificates of appropriateness, and zoning and enforcement actions. Those are examples. That's one area. Another area, ongoing projects and processes that relate to city and county policies for providing timely public information. That's our customer service. Support for boards and commissions, like what we're doing tonight, and the department management. The other area that we have work products in is projects and processes that are somewhat discretionary, reflecting the city and the county's desire to engage in long-range planning activities, such as our new comprehensive plan that we've spent so much time on, and the near future Unified Development Ordinance UDO rewrite, which we are all excited about. The majority of the planning department's work is dictated by state and local law. It falls in that first area that we talked about, or first bucket. and the main area of variability in the work program is work completed by the community planning and strategic support work groups. You'll see that listed in attachment B. For the coming fiscal year, the main policy planning emphasis and resource allocation will shift from completion of our new comprehensive plan to its implementation and rewrite of the UDO. Any new additions that have been made in Part B are marked as new. And the next step for the proposed work program is to be reviewed by the Joint City-County Planning Committee, and then it will be presented to both City Council and Board of County Commissioners. We ask that the Planning Commission make a recommendation on this item this evening. If you have any questions, we're here to answer those. Thank you.
I have one quick procedural question for you, Grace. Do we need a roll call vote for this?
You can do a show of hands if you like. It's up to you.
Great. Okay, questions or comments from the Planning Commission? I have a feeling I know one. Commissioner Baker.
Grace knows too.
Oh, it's okay. Go ahead. I'm ready.
Yeah, so two years ago, I'd asked if we could receive this or an addendum to this, or attachment to this, with sort of a chart showing a list of the long-range projects and sort of on the x-axis, the timeline for when that might start, the amount of time it might take, the portion of the project that would be community engagement, and the anticipated finishing of the project. Yeah, so you're well aware of this request.
Sure. So I'd like to say, yes, you have asked for that. Now, I will say that all of those timelines horizontally for our long-range projects are included in the projects, and they are provided to this body, JCCPC, and the governing bodies as part of our updates that we bring you. So those are included with those projects. They're not included in this list because this is our complete working list of everything we do in the department. As you can see, it's fairly exhaustive. Right down to, I mean, it gets right down to answering the phones almost. So it's in this layout because it's linear. It's not really supposed to be a big, beautiful, broad picture, but it is very linear. It pretty much captures everything we do. We actually had an Excel spreadsheet that we used to use. Well, we still use. Some of us use it in the department. Not everyone use it, but it literally captures every one of these different activities or work products and how much time we spend on those throughout the year. And we have used that for different reasons throughout the year. Getting to my point is a lot of this is used in our work towards budget and how much money we need for different projects and how much money we need for staff and allocation. The good news is, so back to that horizontal time frame for some of our long-range projects, those are in the projects. We also are building a dashboard. Yes, I'm going to call you up. So I mentioned this last year, and that's why I'm calling Alexander Cahill up here. Alexander has been leading the charge on building a dashboard for the department that gives you a clear picture, and it will be an online dashboard. So it's not something that I would have to bring to you in a meeting and someone would have to be here to see or join Zoom. They could look at it any time of the day, and it captures a lot of the things I think that you're looking for, potentially. So I called him up here. I'll let him answer any questions about that dashboard if you have any of those. That will be ready by the end of this fiscal year. That was one of our goals, to finish that project this year. We are having some technical, we're working through some technical issues right now to get it launched, but it's pretty much almost ready. So I hope that helps answer some of your questions, but yeah.
Yeah, and of course I've sort of laid out what it could look like, but I think the point is having something that lays out the long-range projects in a very accessible way, not just accessible to us or to you, but to the public, and maybe even spur some ideas and excitement, like, oh, we have an affordable housing plan. Oh, we haven't started on it because it's not budgeted, but it's on the list.
Right.
And then maybe people would start asking, hey, when is that going to happen? When are we going to get budget? When are we going to budget for it? Oh, we have a small area plan, a quarter plan for Fayetteville Street. Hey, when's that going to happen? What's the timeline for it? I think sort of laying that out in an easily accessible way, whatever that looks like, if it's a dashboard or if it's a spreadsheet or whatever, would be really useful.
Yeah, I'll let Alexandra give you just like a quick couple-minute overview of the dashboard. We're really excited about it, but as far as this particular work program, this is what we intend to work on next year. So if you see it listed here, we've either secured the funds or we will secure the funds to work on it. So that's something I can tell you, that because this is submitted as part of our budget. So like the UDO rewrite, we had monies that we brought over into this fiscal year, so we could go ahead and start working on that now and get ahead of it, so that when the while the comp plan is being getting at the end of the process and being approved, hopefully we can start jumping in with that consultant for the UDO rewrite and start working on those things while it's like right now, and not wait till next fiscal year. So can you talk about the dashboard quickly?
Yeah. I'll make sure y'all see it before it's launched. How's that? The Open Data Dashboard is going to be based on a couple of things. We have a data hub that we use with the city already, and we already collect data on a lot of different metrics, both qualitative and quantitative. This Open Data Portal will portray those data points. It's also going to kind of speak to what you're asking, Commissioner Baker. It's going to show the Racial Equity Inclusion Action Plan, Special Projects Work Plan, Affordable Housing Plan, which we don't have yet, but we brought on Aaron Kane as our Principal Planner of Affordable Housing, and that's one of his tasks. So it's going to have a way for these to be portrayed in accessible ways to the community, have ways for them to interact with them. And then I think the last part to this is sometimes we get hung up on project plan timelines. And what's most important is that we get the resources to do the work rather than completing it by a certain time. And so the Racial Equity and Inclusion Action Plan is a good example of this. We worked diligently over 3 years to make that happen. As a result, we actually have only 20 hours a week right now, but a part-time employee, Amber Agadan, doing a fabulous job leading our racial equity and inclusion work. And so that's just how some of this plays out when you focus a little bit less on those project timelines and more on allocating the resources to them.
Thanks for that. And then just a question on the UDO. So the city has issued the RFP for the UDO, right? Has it closed yet, or is it still open?
It did.
Okay. Okay. And can you tell us any more about how many consultants have applied? Or
We are in the process of working through those right now. Like it's closed, we're working through the applications and such. So we'll be back with more information soon about that. You'll be definitely on the front line and be in the thick of it.
Perfect.
So to speak.
All right. Thanks, Grace.
Yes, you're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Cease?
So one of the suggestions that was made, maybe it was a couple of years ago, the first one of my early meetings, the first time I had seen this, a former commissioner suggested, well, this is just a list. And yes, now it's more articulated in terms of what the elements are on there. But reflecting on our joint meeting with council earlier this month, I guess it was, one of the things that was loud and clear in that meeting from council, I feel, was some concerns about the amount of time that it takes for things to be approved or processed or reviewed, and not just from the staff perspective, but our perspective, all the processes. And so time is a concern. And since this is associated with kind of budget, I'm wondering, and maybe this is a suggestion for next year, but as we make decisions about text changes, as we make decisions about or suggestions to applicants about things to consider that kind of shape future materials, it seems that it would be really helpful just to have a sense of how the planning department staff is allocated. We know there are 47 plus 4 part-time employees allocated to all these tasks, but it would be nice to know how many, generally, in broad general brush terms, or broad brush terms, what do some of these listed items require in terms of staff resources? And I'm asking it from the perspective of, are there things that we shape through our conversations or asks that are impactful in ways that we should understand?
So one thing, we can always share the organizational chart with you. That'll just give you a picture of where people are. It's not going to tell you what they do all day long, like how they spend their hours. But if they're on a team that's devoted to certain things, that's probably how they spend their time. I will say this too right now. We didn't throw out any specific numbers at that joint meeting, but we can tell you, and we have the data to back it, and I'm sure it will be included as part of that dashboard. I'm assuming, you correct me if I'm wrong, how things move through the process and where they are in the process, because we actually are moving much quicker than we were, and things have changed. We do have a much better situation with our staffing allocation. Our capacity is much better than it was. I think I just want to remind everyone, we didn't get into these weeds at the joint meeting, but the ones of you that have been here a few years, you know that we had a lot of staff turnover. Yeah. We lost like 2 teams, I was managing and we lost 2 teams. At one point, I was the only person doing historic preservation and zonings for about 3 months, I think, by myself. And then I started to take employees from other teams just so we could get stuff to you all to be reviewed. So we've rebounded from that. I feel like we've rebounded really nicely, actually, and we have more resources than we ever have had to throw at this work. And so I don't have any, I can't tell you any specifics or how you play into that. I'm just I wanted to make sure you see that picture that right now we're feeling pretty good about our resources.
And maybe an org chart would be sufficient to be,
right.
but I'm not suggesting, any criticism whatsoever with regards to timing. I'm just reflecting on that as a part of the conversation that occurred with council, and kind of looking at this list, thinking it'd be nice to know how many people are here, and just in general terms, because you can't commit and things change. Thank you.
No, we will be more than happy to share the org chart with you. I think that would be a very, we should have probably already, we share it with people when they ask. We should.
The updated org chart that's based on.
And we do have an updated one, so we'll share that.
Based on work instead of people.
Yeah, it's based on what we're doing, not just people. So yeah, you'll see where the work lives and how many positions there are, and then you just assume those are the people, that's how many positions are doing that work, so. Yeah.
And just to clarify, the reason I'm asking is I want to hopefully avoid asking things that are perhaps minor but are major in staff allocation.
No, I did want to clear that because that bothered me from that last meeting that we walked out of there, and I didn't want you all to feel like that we're not staffed appropriately to manage the work that comes to you. I think we probably are now. I mean, I think Alexander would agree, and Alexander's in the midst of it every day. But it's a whole different, I'm telling you, it's a whole different world when you go from 1.5 FTEs doing this work at one point to maybe, is it 4 or 5 at any given time. We have a lot of capacity right now, but we're doing other things too. That team is taking over. Well, that work group is doing text amendments. We've combined some things, and anyway, so there we go. I would love for you to.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so growth management went from, like Grace said, just her at one point, then just me and her, to now we have 5 staff. We reallocated, and this is something Director Young's very good at. She looks at the department, she consults her ADs, and we move people to meet different work. And so with the site plan group now has 7 employees instead of 6. So there are some moves there that are really, really good. You asked how y'all can stay involved and help and move the process along. If you join our planning newsletter and see what's going on, tomorrow we have like a user testing event, things like that you see and you want to participate in. That's ways to help us make the process better and stronger.
Yep. Thank you. That was great. Thank you for adding that.
Thank you. Commissioner Carmen.
Sorry we got carried away. We're just excited that we actually have, we're doing some work now that we've been wanting to do.
Oh, no, it's great. I was thinking, I guess I'm thankful that we're talking longer about the department's work plan than we talked about pet waste tonight. I think that's probably a victory of some sort.
I'm thankful for that as well, but.
Commissioner Carmen Williams.
Yes, I will be brief. I do want to let staff know that we are greatly appreciative of the work that you do and the strides that you have made in terms of simplifying the information that we receive as well as the public. I'm definitely not as concerned about how many people you have working and what your org chart looks like as I am about the number of cases that you have to review, which is beyond our control, but we also understand who controls that. So thank you for doing what you do with the staff that you do have. And I can't tell you enough how much we appreciate it, having served here a little while, if you will. We've seen the changes, and we appreciate it, and the simplifying of things. The last meeting was definitely a process. It was something that was necessary, and I think that through that, both the Planning Commission and staff, we all have something that we can stand on moving forward. And I think that it's more advantageous that we better understand how we complicate things as opposed to how you run your office. Thank you.
And we appreciate that, but anytime you need any information about numbers of cases, timeframes, we're happy to provide that to you. Just email us, reach out to us. Again, Alexander will be providing an overview of that dashboard coming soon, and that should help too. It'll help you be more educated so that when you do get a call from whether it's an elected official or a resident, you can answer some questions. So.
Great, thank you. At this time, I do need a motion to approve to recommend to approve the work plan. So I would entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I believe that was moved by Commissioner Morgan, and I'm going to say it was seconded by Vice Chair Cameron. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Motion passes unanimously. Next item under new business. So committee commission appointments. Here's the situation. I was reviewing our rules and procedures recently as the good chair that I am, and I noted that we have, under our current rules and procedures, some committees that we are supposed to staff with planning commission members. That said, I think three of the committees, one of the committees listed is JCCPC, and I'm on that. Two of the committees listed don't exist anymore. And the other two committees are currently in the process of updating their rules and procedures and determining whether or not they will include planning commission representation in their rules and procedures. So we're not going to appoint members to those committees at this time until they sort their stuff out, but just flagging for you all, we're working through some rules and procedures. We're going to update our rules and procedures at some time in the near future, and we will address this at that time. That is all. With that, is there any other business announcements folks have, staff?
Staff just remind you to be back here in 2 weeks. Same
Yes.
place, same time, fun.
Be back here March 28th.
Yeah.
Is that on my calendar?
If not, it should be. For March 28th, for our next hearing on the new comprehensive plan, we'll be focusing on the urban growth boundary, which we're all hearing a lot about right now, so it's going to be great. All right.
5:30?
5:30 p.m., yes, Eastern time. Okay, with that,
Thank you. I'll just come over here for your parking validation.
great. This meeting is adjourned at 8:42 p.m. Eastern time.